Hello, guys, and welcome back to Regaining the Balance audiobook reading of the Rosicrucians and Their Teachings, Part 3 by Reverend Dr. R. Swinburne Clymer. I think this version is done in 1910. All right, so I got to the end of the last one, and the version I was reading, which was actually had like larger print to it. It continues like randomly in the middle of some paragraphs. So I went to the other one, and that's what we'll be reading from today. So, anyways, without further ado, why don't we get into it? We're going to be doing Rosicrucian Symbols today, it looks like, starting off with. And share the screen. Here we go. Okay, sound is good, and let's get into it. Rosicrucian Symbols, the Rose. In the fifth book of the Histoire de la Magique, Eliphas Levi has the following to say on the Rosicrucian symbol, the rose. Quote, the rose, which from time immemorial has been the symbol of beauty and life, of love and pleasure, expressed in a mystical manner all the protestations of the Renaissance. It was the flesh revolting against the oppression of the spirit. It was the nature declaring herself to be, like grace, the daughter of God. It was love refusing to be stifled by the celibate. It was life desiring to be no longer barren. It was humanity aspiring to a natural religion, full of love and reason, founded on the revelation of the harmonies of existence, of which the rose was for initiates the living and blooming symbol. The rose, in fact, is a pentacle. Its form is circular. The leaves of the vorola are heart-shaped and are supported harmoniously by one another. Its color presents the most delicate shades of primitive hues. Its calyx is purple and gold. The conquest of the rose was the problem offered by initiation in science, while religion toiled to prepare and establish the universal, exclusive, and definitive triumph of the cross. The union of the rose and the cross, such was the problem proposed by supreme initiation, and in effect occult philosophy, being the universal synthesis, should take into account all the phenomena of being. Unquote. Such, in fact, is the truth, and such is the mystery of the rose today. I have no doubt but that Levi could have told what the mystery of the rose is, but to no neophyte is ever told the secret. All must work it out themselves, as their hierophants have done before them, and even were the neophyte told, it would do him no good, as he must needs develop first, and the mystery will work out its own problem. Dr. Franz Hartmann, in his book In the Proneos of the Temple of Wisdom, is still plainer when speaking of the Rosicrucian Brotherhood. He says, quote, they all had to bear the cross of suffering before they could become crowned with victory. They all had to crucify their selfishness and personal will and die in regards to all that attracts the soul to the sphere of earthly desires and illusions before they could have the spiritual faculties of the souls unfolded like the rose, whose leaves are unfolded by the rays of the rising sun. Unquote. Isn't that interesting? In these few lines are contained the whole grand mystery of the rose, but none but those illuminated by the inner light will be able to understand, and it is well that such is the fact. All those that really desire to know, not for selfish purpose, but because they desire wisdom and illumination for the good of humanity, will sooner or later find the way that leads to the understanding of this divine symbol. Quote, knock and it shall be opened unto you, seek and ye shall find, unquote, is the divine command and will continue to be until the end of time. Dr. Waite, in his book on, quote, the real history of the Rosicrucians, unquote, seems to think that the words rosy cross were derived from the Latin words ros, do, and crux, cross. But Dr. Waite should not be taken as an authority on any subject spiritual. As a historian, he is well enough being honest in quoting the writings of others, but in his deduction he is wholly material, believing only in that which he can see, feel, and that which he knows to be a fact. Not being an initiate, he does not believe that such an order or fraternity exists, and abuses such great men as Lord Lytton, Hargrave, Jennings, Randolph, and others, and seems to think that England never had such a fraternity and that there is none in existence there at the present time. A conclusion wholly erroneous. On the other hand, such authors as Hartmann, Levi, Randolph, Jennings, Beard may be believed, although they use symbols and writings which can only be understood by the initiate, but never by the materialist. There is but little to be found concerning the rose in all the books written by Rosicrucians. Dr. Hartman and E. Levi are about the only ones. The reason is simple enough. They are unable to give an explanation of it without disclosing its mystery, and it is therefore used as a symbol without much being said about it. Okay, the cross. In his work, quote, The Hidden Way Across the Threshold, unquote, Dr. Street says, quote, It is the tree of life, the mystery of the dual nature, male and female, the symbol of humanity perfected, and of the apotheosis of suffering. It is traced by our Lord the Sun on the plane of the heavens. It is represented by the magnetic and diamagnetic forces of Earth, as is seen in the ice crystal and in the snowflake. The human form itself is modeled upon its pattern, and all nature bears throughout her manifold spheres the impress of this sign, at once the prophecy and instrument of her redemption. I got another video I'm gonna do where Carl Jung does an interesting breakdown of the cross as well. I think you guys will find that interesting, so I'll do that soon. Fourfold in meaning, having 4 points and making 4 angels. Dividing the circle into 4 equal parts, the cross portrays the perfect union, balance, equality, and atonement on all 4 planes and on all 4 worlds, phenomenal, intellectual, physical, and celestial, and of the man and woman, the spirit and the bride. It is supremely, transcendently, and excellently the symbol of the divine. Marriage is consummated only when the regenerate man enters the kingdom of the celestial which is within. Then the without and the within, and the twain are as one in Christ, being thus the key to all the world from the outer to the inner. The cross presents, as it were, 4 wards of significations, and according to these, the mystery of crucifixion bears relation. First, to the natural and actual sense, and typifies the crucifixion of man of God by the world. Secondly, the intellectual and philosophical senses, and typifies the crucifixion in man of the lower nature. Thirdly, to the personal and sacrificial sense, and symbolizes the passion and oblation of the Redeemer. Fourthly, to the celestial and creative sense, and represents the oblation of God to the universe. The crucified, regenerate man, having made okay, they spell it funny, at one ment or atonement. So the crucified, regenerate man, having been at one ment, atonement, throughout his own dual and fourfold nature, this crucifixion is the death of the animal body, the rending of the veil of flesh, and the uniting of the human will with the divine will, the concord and attainment with the absolute love, or as it is sometimes called, the reconciliation, which is only another name for atonement. Oh my God. It is the consummation of the prayer, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It is the divine life, the vital, immortal principle, having neither beginning nor ending. This also is the secret of transmutation, the changing of water into wine, of matter into spirit, man becoming attuned in concord with God. This blood of Christ and of the covenant, this wine within the holy chalice of which all must drink, that living fountain, he who drinks of which shall never thirst, is perfect, pure, and incorruptible spirit, cleansing and making white the vesture of the soul as no earthly purge can whiten. The gift of God through Christ, the heritage of the elect, to live the divine life, is to be partaker in the blood of Christ and to drink of Christ's cup. Excuse me, I need to take a sip. It is to know the love of Christ, quote, which passeth understanding, unquote. That love which is the life of God and the light of the angels, and whose characteristic symbol is the blood-red ray of the solar prism. By this mystical blood, love, we are ripened into spirit and saved by being born again through this blood, which is no other than the secret of all Christ's, whereby man is transmuted from the material to the spiritual plane, the mystery of the hidden way, the union of the dual with the triune, the secret of the temple within and inward purification by means of love. For this quote-unquote blood, spoken of throughout all the sacred writings as the essential principle of the quote-unquote life, is the spiritual life. That's a pretty big blue here. I just gotta, oh, forget it. Life is in its highest, most intense, most exalted, and most excellent sense, not the mere physical life understood by the materialist, nor life from a human standpoint or theory only, but the positive, absolute, and substantial being essence, the inward deity in man, and it is by means the divine love only, which means the blood of Christ, that we are born again and can come to the Father and inherit the kingdom of heaven. For when it is said that the blood of Christ cleanseth from all sin, it is signified that sin is impossible to him who is perfect in love. The twofold aspects of the cross is wisdom and love. Though one in essence, they are twain in application. Since love cannot give without receiving, nor receive without giving, we have therefore in this double mystery both obligation and uplifting of the Christ in man, and passion and sacrifice for others, of the man in whom the Christ is manifest. For even as Christ is one in us, so are we one with Christ. Because as Christ loves and gives himself for us, we also who are in Christ give ourselves for others. The crux ansata, or handle cross, also called the cross of Osiris, is the most sacred symbol of the Egyptian antiquity, meaning the pathway to eternal life. United by love, to love is to know. The sacred cross was carried in the right hand both by the priest and the candidate, and was an indispensable emblem of all the religious ceremonies of ancient Egypt. This is the symbol which, when transferred to Christian hands, becomes the model of the papal keys of the kingdom of heaven. Wow. Somebody just sent me a picture, and then, you see a lot of pictures and depictions of in paintings and in etchings and stuff like that when you have the Pope and he has the two keys in his hand. There you go. This could be the symbolism behind that. The character of perfection is moreover symbolized in the cross, in that being formed of two transverse beams, it portrays the atonement between the divine and human wills, and the loop or handle is symbolic of the gloria, of the overshadowing of a dove, emblem of the Holy Spirit, as is the sacred Spirit to all saints and to man regenerate, overshadowing him at his baptism of initiation as mentioned in the Gospels. A.E. Waite says, quote, "The cross is a hierogram of, if possible, still higher antiquity than the floral emblem." That is true. It is at any rate more universal and contains a loftier and more arcane significance. Its earliest form is the crux ansata, in which, according to some authorities, signifies hidden wisdom and the life of the world to come. According to others, it is the lingam, as the hieroglyphic sign of Venus is. It is an ancient allegorical figure and represents the mental, copper, and alchemical typology. The crux ansata and the tau are met with on most Egyptian monuments. In the latter form, it was an emblem of the creative and generative energy. According to Payne Knight, was even in Christian times a sign of salvation. It is not necessary to go back thus far for its meaning, as every mystic and occultist worthy of the name knows that the cross represents both generation and regenerations, at once the beginning and end, in crus salus. That was a very interesting section. The crus salus, the winged globe. The winged globe. The winged globe is possibly the most beautiful and most divine symbol of the Rosicrucian and has many meanings. Some of these, the exoteric, may be explained, but the inner, the esoteric, meaning cannot be explained to the profane world. Even though we would desire to give the full meaning to the world, it cannot be done, as that must be felt, but can never be told. We may be happy through many occurrences, or we may be hurt and feel pain. We know that we have these sensations, but we cannot explain what they are. It is thus with this divine symbol that we can develop to such an extent that we know what it means and feel it. But this feeling can no more be told to others than we can tell them how to feel when we truly love. That's a good point. People have been trying to express love for eons. The winged globe is preeminently a Rosicrucian symbol. Although the Illuminati may lay some claim to it and it may be said to be of Egyptian origin, Dr. Street, in his work, quote, The Hidden Way Across the Threshold, unquote, says of this symbol, quote, the winged globe represents the soul passing back to its source after its pilgrimage, evolving rotations, unfolding into a perfect soul after the trial in the hall of two truths, the globe being a symbol of either the supreme soul or a portion of it, and the wings added represent its flight to the upper spheres, having finished its course, a ripened soul on its returning journey to its original source in the bosom of absolute love. There are many meanings concealed in this symbol, and it is best that many of them remain concealed until man can be better trusted with the power that is within him and at his command through the astral world and the celestial forces through the 12 signs of the zodiac. Much more, the elemental spirits of these circuli, which correspond to air, water, earth, and fire, beginning at the outer and the uppermost and going inward and downward. For the magnetic emanations of the astral are under the dominion of the fire. They are not souls nor divine personalities, but are simply emanations or phantoms of being and have no real being. Interesting. The highest and uppermost of these circuli, or wheels, is that of the elemental spirits, or winged creatures, quote unquote. The second is that of the souls and the seed of souls. The third is that of the shades or manes of the past of the planet and its life. The fourth and the lowest is that of the magnetic spirits commonly called astrals. This astral sphere, belt, or curculus is variously known and called the perisoul, the magnetic, the odic fluid or body, the second body, the book or record of thought, the reflector of the will. But one of the most important meanings of the symbol is the light of the dual or bisexual forces of man in relation to the different signs of the zodiac, the true light and knowledge of which gives man a mighty power either for good or evil. It was left for Dr. Paschal Beverly Randolph to give us an explanation of this symbol that will show us the true meaning in such a light that we can easily understand it. And in his book, quote, The Soul World, unquote, he says, quote, Whoever looks for a man must go below and above skin, flesh, muscles, and bones to find him. Well, let the searcher enter the domain of the senses, a country that lies a long distance beyond the nervo-osseous land. Here is the man, somewhere in the region of sense. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5, or a dozen, no matter about counting them. Yet nowhere in all this region have we found or can find the man. We are certainly nearer to him than we were a while ago, yet not finding him, we conclude to go a little farther in the search. He dwells in the faculties. Not so. Try again. In the passions? Further still, not yet home. In godlike reason and the quality parlors of virtue, aspiration, expression, each one step nearer to the goal. Go a little deeper, and in the centers of the brain you will find a winged globe of celestial fire in which dwells the man. This part of God, crowded into less than 3 square inches of surface, here is the seat of the soul, here is the grand depot at which all the nerves and thought and knowing, thinking, feeling, strains, and telegraphic lines converge and meet. This winged globe is a house of many mansions, eternal in itself, and the principal parlor, in the grandest palace of them all, is devoted to the peerless power, intuition. I love that. Born in man, it often lies perdu, which means lost, or latent, till the final passage, and never bursts into full activity at once, save in very rare instances, as in case of those wonderful genii, Newton, Laplace, and men of that order, and even in these it is only partially active. It requires peculiar conditions for its expansion, just as the reasoning and other faculties require time and exercise. The soul is really a divine monad, a particle, so to speak, of the divine brain, a celestial coruscation from the eternal heart, and for that reason, an eternal existence, immortality being its very essence, and expansion constituting its majestic nature. And the soul, this monad, was once an integer of God himself, was sent forth by his fiat, became incarnated, and an individual separate and distinct from, yet having strong affinities for, all things material, stronger for all things spiritual, and for its brethren, and an attraction towards its ultimate source, stronger than all else besides. Sorry, guys, that was one sentence. I have to take a quick sip. Here then I lay bare the very cornerstone of the splendid temple of progress, whose foundations are laid in time, but whose turrets catch the gleams from the eternal sun of suns, whose warming rays diffuse themselves over every starry island in the tremendous ocean of being. Intuition is but an awakening of the inmost soul to an active personal consciousness of what it knew by virtue of its divine genesis. Suffering appears to be one means towards this awakening and the consequent intensification of the individuality, and the passions of men, labor, and evil are also agents to this end. Suffering and sorrow are two good things for the soul, provided we see the good in them and take them as true and great things and great beings should. But if we look upon sorrow as a curse and curse it yet besides, it will have the opposite effect on us, and instead of developing the soul, it will shrivel it instead. It is only by suffering, concentration, and meditation that we may learn the esoteric meaning of the quote winged globe. Wow. Oh man. There's a lot I agree with in this paragraph. I don't know actually a whole lot of what this last couple pages. I mean, this right here. This is the crux of a lot of truth. And then hopefully I can share some stuff with you guys that will go deeper into these ideas. Because it's definitely one of these things where you can wrap your head around this, it'll change the way you deal with so many problems in your life, and you will be upset. You will get mad less. There were the things that anyway. Continuing, sorry. The winged globe has other centers than the head. For these, see the quote First American Manifesto of the Rosicrucians. And okay, that's the end of that. Let me just double check to make sure everything's running good. You guys, put the brakes on. Okay, everything's good. If anyone's in the chat, guys, I'm not going to be able to interact, so just wanted to say hi. I know I saw a couple people left some messages there. Thanks for joining me. And we'll continue here. Okay, and so we got this weird thing here. Life, light, and love. All right, interesting. Rosicrucians and Freemasons. Let's get into this. There seems to be a general belief, even among some Masons, that the 18th degree of Masonry, known as the Prince of the Rose Croix, the Herodem, is identical with the Rosicrucian fraternity. However, nothing could be farther from the truth. The first work or pamphlet written on the Rosicrucian was either in 1614 or 1615, and what is known as the now famous Fama Fraternitatis by Christian Rosenkreuz. The degree in Masonry known as Prince of the Rose Croix was not known until somewhere between the years 1756 and 1768. It is not known positively in what year, as the old records of some of them have been either lost or destroyed. The 18th degree of Masonry is the most ancient, interesting, and most generally practiced of the philosophical degrees of high Masonry. Of the origin of this degree of Masonry, more will be said later on. Up to somewhere in the 14th century, Masonry was not what it became later, for prior to that time it was known as mystic Masonry and had two aims. One reason for its existence was to have a truly secret organization, which would admit men as members who desire the priceless boon of liberty and to avoid the persecution of the Church of Rome, which had held sway at the time. In this, its desire was the same as that of the other secret orders of the time. The other aim was to teach the secrets of nature. The order had nothing to do with operative Masonry. It was purely speculative, contrary to what some authorities may say. A change gradually took place as the persecution of the church ceased and the order became divided in itself. One was still known as Masonry, and the word mystic was gradually lost, while the other branch, composed of those who were interested in the mystic science and went under various names. That would explain a lot. After the excitement caused by the appearance of the Fama Fraternatis, the Masonic orders again admitted all true initiates to the Rosicrucian order as the Hermetic order had become known. During the latter part of the 17th century, Masonry became somewhat degenerated, and those who were not true initiates or members of the Rosicrucian fraternity were allowed to enter the Masonic lodges, claiming that they were such. There's an asterisk here. Let me just. Okay. It says, see Pronoes of the Temple by Franz Hartzmann. These things became known and opened the doors to a great many strolling adventurers, charlatans, pretenders, Jesuits, and others who were not slow to see their advantages and to gain admission to the lodges under the guise of being Rosicrucians. As there were no longer any true Rosicrucians in the Masonic lodges to test them, this could be easily accomplished by these pretenders, and the only thing for the lodges to do was to close the doors to all those who had not been regularly initiated into the Masonic body. This was done, and the Masonic lodges have been closed to all but its initiates up to the 19th century, when some Masons again traveled the path and were admitted into the Rosicrucian fraternity, and some of the doors are open to the Rosicrucians. The Masonic order will again become what it was before the 14th century, when the whole Masonic body was mystic Masonry and operative Masonry had nothing to do with it. In the foretime, the Masons had not lost the meaning of the lost word, and were still in possession of that stone that builders rejected. Once more, many of them are seeking for the lost word, and many of them know that this word being Rosea Crucis, or spirituality. Many have applied for the admission to the Temple of the August Fraternity and are now traveling the path that leads to true initiation, and Masonry may again become what it was centuries ago. It is true that this regeneration of so vast an order will go slowly, but evolution takes its own good time, but ever does its work perfectly. All Rosicrucians may be Mason. In fact, are Masons, but not all Masons can become Rosicrucians. While the Masonic orders as a whole have again found the lost word, then will churchism, not Christianity, pass away. Interesting. Churchism. Just as fast as Masonry advances in the right path, just that fast will churchism fall. Reader, do you see the signs of Masonic regeneration? If not, then, quote, there are none so blind as those who will not see, unquote. The 18th degree of Masonry was not founded by Andrea, as some suppose, but was by some of his followers who had gained admission into the Masonic order because they knew that Masonry would become purely ceremonial and desired to have some of the symbols as taught in mystic Masonry. It is absolutely not a Jesuitical it is absolutely not a Jesuitical institution, as many of the Masons themselves suppose. The rose on the cross should at once dispel such an idea. At the same time, it proves that none but the Rosicrucian could have worked out this degree, for the jewels are purely Rosicrucian symbols. The eagle and pelican are also Rosicrucian symbols, as the study of the Kabbalah will show. The three pillars of faith, hope, and charity are purely Christian, and the Jesuitical order never was and never will be Christian. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with that. The skull and crossbones are Rosicrucian symbols, and the degree is therefore purely Rosicrucian, although the degree as we now have it has been changed a great deal, and only the symbols of the original Rosicrucian degree remain. There seems to be a general belief among a certain class of mystics that the Rosicrucian and Martinist order are in some way connected. This is another erroneous belief. The Rosicrucian fraternity, so far as I can learn, is not connected with other order and does not have any ceremonial degrees, nor is it necessary, as far as I know, that a man needs to be a Mason in order to be allowed to enter the path leading to initiation into the Rosicrucian fraternity. In fact, we know that this is so for the reason that women are allowed to enter as well as men and on equal terms in all respects. On the other hand, the true Martinist order positively does not admit anyone who is not a Mason, and therefore it is easy to see that no woman can become a member. Having a warm feeling in my heart, which I think has changed, if I'm not mistaken, for the Masons, Having a warm feeling in my heart for my Masonic brothers, I wish to dispel another delusion that the people as a whole and a part of the Masons believe to be a truth, namely the belief that one Morgan, a Mason, exposed the secrets of Masonry. This is one of the greatest delusions that a people ever were led to believe. The truth of the matter is that a degenerate Catholic became a Mason and later gave the secrets of the order to Rome, and through the Catholic body, these secrets were exposed, or rather that were supposed to be secrets of Masonry. There is another occult order, so-called, that claims to initiate its members and give them the Rose Cross degree. This is another delusion, for the Rose Cross has no ceremonial degrees, and therefore no order can confer such a degree. Learn to know all things, but remain thyself unknown. And again, quote, learn to know all things and hold fast to that which is true, unquote, is good teaching. But avoid all occult orders that would take you a Rosicrucian by taking you through a ceremonial initiation for such a thing is an impossibility. Interesting. The first Rosicrucian Manifesto. Here we go. Take a sip. The first Rosicrucian Manifesto ever issued as such appeared in the year 1614, entitled Fama Fraternatis, and was accredited to one Christian Rosicrucian. In the same year, another pamphlet, quote, Universal and General Reformation of the Whole Wide World, unquote, appeared and closely followed this name of the Confessio, unquote, quote unquote. So here we go. A mystery solved. There is not a single work before the public today that gives the truth concerning this first manifesto. Some authors seem to think that there was really such a person as Christian Rosicrucian, and that he wrote the, quote, Fama, unquote, and the pamphlets following it, while others again are almost positive that one Johann Valentin Andreas wrote it, who are unable to account for the name of Christian Rosicrucian. However, it is mere speculation on both sides, as they have no proof as to who was really the author. The fact is, neither side knows the truth concerning the authorship of these manifestos. The question then still remains, who wrote the Fama Fraternitatis, Fama Fraternitatis and Confessio? From private records now in my possession, I am unable to solve this mystery. Somewhere between 1606, Johann Valentin Andreas, then a scholar of mysticism, left Germany for the Orient and spent a number of years there. While there, he was initiated and became a brother of an order then known as the Paracelsians, more properly the Hermetics, between the year 1610 and 1612. He returned to his native land. Germany at that time was overrun with monks, nuns, and religious fanatics of all kinds, and also a great impostors and pretenders, and pretended alchemists, astrologers, and others. And there was a universal mania among the people to pry into the secrets of nature and to enrich themselves by alchemical processes. The cross was used as a symbol by the established church at that time as it is today, but its meaning had been totally lost. The so-called alchemists and other impostors also used the cross as a symbol to impose upon the people, and besides the cross, the rose was one of their symbols, although it is safe to say that they did not know the meaning of either. Andreas wrote several satirical pamphlets upon the corruption and hypocrisy of the period, but these did not have the desired effect, nor make much impression on the people, as he had received the true initiation while in the Orient, and therefore knowing the mystic meaning of the rose and the cross, he saw at a glance how these sublime and powerful symbols were abused. The cross, as said before, was the symbol used by the church, as it was also by the pseudo-orders of Germany. Excuse me. Oh man, this is the pseudo-orders of Germany. That's a very huge clue for some future stuff. The rose also was used by the orders, but their meaning had been lost, and the real alchemy or transmutation of metals was understood to mean the transmutation of gross material metals into fine gold, and as may be expected, was used to impose on the people of that age. As an initiate and at variance with the established church, these pseudo-orders impostors, he sought for a way to save these symbols from the curse that was sure to fall upon them after a more sane age had set in, and it is a fact that even to this day all orders of this nature are looked upon with mistrust by the German nation as a whole. There was a way open to do this, but in order to do so, it was necessary for him to expose these pseudo orders and give the real meaning of alchemy, initiation in these symbols. Since he could not do as he had taken an oath of quote unquote silence, even before he became a neophyte, he, however, perceived another way to accomplish his end, and this was by giving to the world a radical treatise that would throw ridicule on the so-called alchemists and others of that ilk, and at the same time give great and quote unquote inner secrets to the world in a veiled language and in such a way that it would draw the people away from these impostors and excite their curiosity. This he could not do under his own name, as it was necessary to reveal some secrets that he had learned. And at that time the true order was very strict. He therefore sought for a nom de plume, and as the rose and the cross were the most powerful and universally known symbols of that or any other time, even as they are at the present day, furthermore, as both of them are symbols of esoteric Christianity, he took the name, the Christian Rose and Cross, and in order to make an individual name out of it, he changed it to Christian Rosicrucians. And under that name, as a nom de plume, he wrote the now famous Fama Fraternitatis. Andrea did not think that his own fraternity would take up his name, nor could he know the reformation it would cause to set in. However, the fraternity of which he was a brother saw fit and adopted the name of Fraternity Rosicrucis, as it was so fittingly applied to their chief symbols, and continued their work in the silence as before, henceforth to be known as the Fraternity of Rosicrucis, or Rosicrucians. On the other hand, this manifesto caused many other pseudo-orders to spring up under that name, but who had no real initiation, and with no other intention but to impose upon the people. As these orders had no true initiation, and therefore no life, they soon died out, and the true order of Fraternity of the Rosy Cross continued its work in silence, as it had done while under its old name. As the basis of the Fama Fraternitatis, Andrea took the quote inner unquote teachings of the fraternity to which he belonged, but veiled them so completely that none but those who knew would understand them. And as the brothers of the Fama, he took his own brothers, the same as the playwright takes real life for the basis of his plays. Following the Fama appeared the Universal Reformation, quote unquote, Universal Reformation. The meaning of this pamphlet, which was written for the purpose of throwing ridicule upon a certain class of people who wanted to improve the world at once and to show the absurdity and impossibility of such an undertaking, was plain enough, and it seems incredible that its purpose should have been misunderstood. That there were any people who took the matter seriously showed the extreme ignorance and want of judgment of the common people of those times, and forms an interesting episode for the student of history and intellectual evolution. Indeed. Following the, quote, Universal Reformation, unquote, came the pamphlet, quote, Chemical Marriage of Christian Rosicrucians, unquote, printed in 1616. This again was written to throw ridicule upon the vain and self-conceited dogmatists, scientists, and quote-unquote gold makers of those times, while at the same time it contains high and exalted truths and in fact gives the real secret of alchemy, or the transmutation of metals, disguised in an allegorical form, but easily to be understood by the practical occultist or mystic, and by no one but him. Interesting. Andrea did not invent any of the principles or characteristics used in any of the three works, but he took them from real life as found in the fraternity of which he was an initiate, and only veiled them in such a manner that even his own brothers did not know that it was they whom he represented. Having thus cleared the mystery surrounding the Fama and its author, we will give the Fama itself. All right, preface to the Fama Fraternitatis. Quote, to the wise and understanding reader, unquote. Wisdom, saith Solomon, is a treasure unto men that never faileth, for she is the breath of the power of God, and an inherent flowing from the glory of the Almighty. She is the brightness of the everlasting light, the unspotted mirror of the power of God, and the image of his goodness. She teacheth civility with righteousness and strength. She knoweth things of old, and conjectureth aright what is to come. She knoweth the subtleties of speeches, and can expound dark sentences. She foreseeth signs and wonders with the advent of seasons and times. With this treasure was our first father Adam before his fall fully endued. Hence it doth appear that after God had brought before him all the creatures of the field and the fowls under the heaven, he gave to every one of them their proper name according to their nature. Although now, through the sorrowful fall into sin, this excellent jewel, wisdom, hath been lost, and mere darkness and ignorance is come into the world, yet, notwithstanding, the Lord God hath sometimes hitherto bestowed and made manifest the same to some of his friends. The wise King Solomon doth testify to himself that he upon his earnest prayer and desire obtained such wisdom of God, that thereby he knew how the world was made, and understood the operation of the elements, the beginnings, endings, and middest of the times, the alterations, the days of the turning of the sun, and the change of seasons. The sun is spelled Sunne, by the way. The change of seasons, the circuits of years, and the position of stars, the nature of living creatures, and the furies of wild beasts, the violence of winds, and the reasoning of men, the diversities of plants, the virtues of roots, and all such things are either secret or manifest, them he knew. Now I do not think there can be found anyone who would not wish and desire with all his heart to be partaker of this noble treasure, but seeing the same felicity can happen to no except God himself give wisdom and send his Holy Spirit from above. We have set forth in print this little treatise, to wit, the Fama and Confessionum of the laudable fraternity of the Rosy Cross, to be read by everyone, because in them it clearly shown and discovered what concerning in the world hath hereinafter to expect. Although now these things may seem somewhat strange, and many might esteem it to be a philosophical show and no true history which is published and spoken of the fraternity of the Rosy Cross, it shall therefore sufficiently appear by our confession that there is more in recessu than may be imagined. And it shall also be easily understood that observed by everyone, if he be not altogether void of understanding, that nowadays is meant thereby. Those who are true disciples of wisdom and true followers of the spiritual art will consider better of these things and have them in greater estimation, as also judge far otherwise of them, as hath been done of some principal persona, but especially of Adam Hasselmeyer, notorious publicus to the Archduke Maximilian, whose likewise hath made an extract ex scriptus theologicus Theophrasti, and written a treatise under the title Jesuits, wherein he willeth that every Christian should be a true Jesuit. That is, should walk, live, and be as Jesus. That's what it means. He was but ill rewarded of the Jesuits, because in his answer written upon the Fama he did name those of the fraternity of the Rosy Cross, quote, the highly illuminated men and undeceiving Jesuits, unquote, for they, not able to brook this, laid hands on him and put him into the galleys, for which they likewise are expected to expect their reward. Blessed Aurora will now begin to appear, who, after the passing away of the dark night of Saturn, with her brightness altogether extinguished, the shining of the moon or small sparkles of the heavenly wisdom which yet remains with men, and is a forerunner of pleasant Phobos, woe, with her clear and fiery glistening beams, brings forth that blessed day, long wished for many true-hearted, by which daylight then shall truly be known and seen, all heavenly treasures of godly wisdom, as also the secrets of all hidden and invisible things in the world, according to the doctrine of our forefathers and ancient wise men. Whew, this is tough, guys. They literally just copied this in like the kind of Middle English spelling, so I apologize if I stumble a little. This will be the right kingly ruby, most excellent shining carbuncle, of the which it is said that he doth shine and give light in darkness, and is perfect medicine of all imperfect metalline bodies, to change them into the best gold and to cure all diseases of men, easing them of their pains and miseries. Be therefore, gentle reader, admonished, that with me you do earnestly pray to God that it may please him to open the hearts and ears of all ill-hearing people, and to grant unto them his blessing, that they may be able to know him in his omnipotency, with admiring contemplation of nature, to his honor and praise, and to the love, help, comfort, and strengthening of our neighbors, and to the restoring of health of all the diseased. Amen. Well, that was quite the cryptic discovery of the fraternity of the most laudable order, or the Rosy Cross. Fame Fraternatus. All right, that was the preface to the Fraternatus. So here we go. Launching into the Fame Fraternitatis. Seeing the only wise and merciful God in these latter days hath poured out so richly his mercy and goodness to mankind, whereby we do attain more and more to the perfect knowledge of his Son, Jesus Christ, and of nature, that justly we boast of a happy time wherein there is not only discovered unto us the half part of the world, which was heretofore unknown and hidden, but he hath also made manifest unto us many wonderful and never heretofore seen works in creatures of nature, and moreover hath raised men endued with great wisdom, which might partly renew and reduce all arts, in this our spotted and imperfect age, to perfection, so that finally man might be thereby understood his own nobleness and worth, and why he is called microcosmus, and how far his knowledge extended in nature. Although the rude world herewith will be but little pleased, but rather smile and scoff hereat, also the pride and covetousness of the learned is so great that it will not suffer them to agree together. But were they united, they might, out of those things which in this our age God doth so richly bestow on us, collect librum naturae, or the perfect method of all arts. But such is their opposition that they still keep and are loth to leave the old course, esteeming Porphyry, Aristotle, and Galen, yea, and that which hath but a mere show of learning, more than the clear manifesting light and truth. Those, if they were now living, which with much joy would leave their erroneous doctrines, but here is too great weakness for such a great work. And although in theology, physics, I guess, and the mathematic, the truth doth oppose in itself, nevertheless, the old enemy, by his subtle and craft, doth show himself in hindering every good purpose by his instruments and contentious wavering people. To such an intention of a general reformation, the most godly and high illuminated father, our brother C.R.C., a German, the chief and original of our fraternity, hath much and long time labored, who, by reason of his poverty, although descended of noble parents, in the 5th year of his age was placed in a cloister, where he had learned indifferently the Greek and Latin tongues, and upon his earnest desire and request of being yet in his growing years, was associated to a brother P.A.L., who was determined to go to the Holy Land. Although this brother died in Cyprus and so never came to Jerusalem, yet our brother C.R.C. did not return, but shipped himself over and went to Damascus, minding from thence to go to Jerusalem. But by reason of the feebleness of his body, he remained still there, and by his skill in physic, he obtained much favor with the Turks, and in the meantime he became acquainted with the wise men of Damcar in Arabia, and beheld what great wonders they wrought, how nature was discovered unto them. Hereby was that high and noble spirit of brother C.R.C. so stirred up that Jerusalem was not so much now in his mind as Damascus. Although also he could not bridle his desires any longer, but he made a bargain with the Arabians that they should carry him for a certain sum of money to Damcar. He was but of the age of 16 years when he came thither, yet of a strong Dutch constitution. There the wise men received him not as a stranger, as he himself witnessed, but as one whom they had long expected. They called him by his name, and showed him other secrets out of his cloister, whereat he could not but mightily wonder. He learned there better the Arabian tongue, so that the years following he translated the book, quote unquote, M, into good Latin, which he afterwards brought with him. This is the place where he did learn his physic and his mathematics. I guess they mean physics, spell it weird. Whereof the world hath much cause to rejoice, if there were more love and less envy. After 3 years, he returned again with good consent, shipped himself over to Sinus Arabicus into Egypt, where he remained not long, but only took better notice there of the plants and creatures. He sailed over the Mediterranean Sea for to come unto Fez, where the Arabians had directed him. It is a great shame unto us that wise men, so far remote from one another, should not only be of one opinion, hating all contentious writings, but also be so willing and ready under the seal of secrecy to impart their secrets to others. Every year the Arabians and Africans do send one another to one another, inquiring one of another of their arts, if happily they had found out some better things, or if experience had weakened their reasons. Usually there came something to light whereby the mathematics, physics, and magic, for in those are they of Fez most skilled, or amended. There is nowadays no want of learned men in Germany, magazines, Carolists, yeah. Germany, magazines, Carolists, physicians, and philosophers were there, but more love and kindness among them, or that the most part of them would not keep their secrets close to only themselves. At Fez he did get acquainted with those which are commonly called elementary inhabitants, who revealed unto him many of their secrets, as we Germans likewise might gather together many things, if there were the like unity and desire of searching out secrets among us. And here's an asterisk. I think this one is yeah. All right, I'll read the asterisk real quick since it's the end of the page. It will be understood that the asterisk is referring, let's see here, as we Germans likewise might gather together many things if we were like unity and desire for searching out secrets among us. Asterisk. It will be understood that the author does not mean a class or set of people when it speaks of elementary inhabitants, as he has no reference whatever to men or women of the earth with bodies like ours. It is true that the elementals have a corporeal body for a time, but this is given to them by the master that creates them and ceases to exist as soon as the force is called and that created them. The master in mysticism can call forth these beings at will at any time, and by their agency he can gain any knowledge that he may desire, but it is well to fully understand that the law that governs them before attempting to call them into being. See, quote, Le Petit Albert, unquote. All right, here we go. Continuing. Of these of Fez, he often did confess that their magia was not altogether pure, and also that their Kagala was defiled with their religion. But notwithstanding, he knew how to make good use of the same, and found still better grounds for his faith, altogether agreeable with the harmony of the whole world, and wonderfully impressed in all periods of time. Thence proceedeth that fair concord, that in every several kernel is contained a whole good tree of fruit. Very well put. Very well put. So likewise is included in the little body of man, the whole great world, whose religions, policy, health, members, nature, language, words, and works are agreeing, sympathizing, and in equal tone and melody with God, heaven, and earth, and that which is disagreeing with them is error, falsehood, and of the devil, who alone is the first, middle, and last cause of strife, blindness, and darkness in the world. Also, might one examine all the several persons upon the earth, he should find that which is good and right always agreeing with itself, but all the rest is spotted with 1,000 erroneous conceits. After 2 years, Brother R.C. departed the city Fez, and sailed with many costly things into Spain, hoping well, as he himself had so well and profitably spent his time in his travel, that he learned in Europe would highly rejoice with him, and begin to rule and order all their studies according to those sure and sound foundations. He therefore conferred with the learned in Spain, and showed unto them the errors of our arts, how they might be corrected, and from whence they should gather the true indicia of the times to come, and wherein they ought to agree with those things that are past, also how the faults of the church and the whole philosophia moralis were to be amended. He showed them new growths, new fruits, and beasts which did concord with old philosophy, and prescribed them new axiomata, whereby all things might fully be restored. But it was to them a laughing matter, and being a new thing unto them, they feared that their great name would be lessened if they should now again begin to learn, and acknowledge that their many years' errors to which they were accustomed, and wherewith they had gained them enough. Whoso loveth unquietness, let him be reformed, they said. The same song was also sung to him by other nations, the which moved him the more because it happened to him contrary to his expectation. Being then ready bountifully to impart all his arts and secrets to the learned, if they would have but undertaken to write the true and infallible axiomata out of all faculties, sciences, and arts, and whole nature, as that which he knew would direct them, like a globe or a circle, to the only middle point and centrum, and as it is usual among the Arabians, it should only serve to the wise and learned for rule, that also there might be a society in Europe which might have gold, silver, and precious stones sufficient to bestow them on kings for their necessary, useful, and lawful purposes, with which society, such as be governors, might be brought up for to learn all that which God hath suffered man to know, and thereby to enable in all times of need to give their counsel unto those that seek it, like the heathen oracles. And there's an asterisk, and I'll go right into the asterisk. If man discovers anything that will help humanity to become purer and nobler, he must not go to the learned for help, or try and get them to accept it, or even investigate it, for he will surely be disappointed in every instance. I'm sorry, it's funny just because, man, people who will go out there and just put things out just for the love, of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, just look around social media, the internet. Everybody is just trashing each other left and right, and it's gonna happen to me, and I don't care at all. Like, but this is very funny. I laugh because I've experienced this in so many other areas in my life. It's such a true statement. The learned will never accept a discovery or theory that will go contrary to that which they have held and taught for years, for the reason that it would force them to lay aside that which they held as truth, and also force them to begin to learn again. The fear of public opinion is too great. It is for this reason that all or nearly all of the great discoveries in art, science, and medicine have been made by those outside the so-called legitimate body of their respective class. And when such discoveries were made, they were fought against with bitterness until they no longer could be denied. And where am I? Oh, there it is. And it was then that the so-called learned accepted them and went so far as to claim that they had known of these things before. If man makes a discovery that is of benefit to man, he must not go before the learned, nor yet before the masses, but must be satisfied to get the few to take up the work with him, and through them reach the people whom it is to benefit. However, let a man discover that which will destroy life, no matter be it in sword, gun, or medicine, and he will have the great majority of the learned and the ignorant to raise him up above their heads and shove all the money and honor upon him that they possibly can. By the way, this is still the asterisk. Such is human nature, and such was the case in the time when the Fama was first penned, and by Andrea, which such will it be until the universal love will be the rule. The man or woman that tries to or does benefit humanity will ever be the laughingstock of the great majority, and especially of those whom he or she tries to benefit. Wow. That is one hell of a footnote. So continuing the Fama, verily we must confess that the world in those days was already big with those great commotions, laboring to be delivered of them, and did bring forth painful worthy men who brake with all force through darkness and barbarism, and left us who succeeded to follow them. As assuredly they have been the uppermost point in the trigono igneo, whose flame now should be more and more brighter, and shall undoubtedly give to the world the last light. Such a one likewise hath Theophrastus been in vocation and calling, although he was none of our fraternity. Yet nevertheless hath he diligently read over the book, quote unquote, M, whereby his sharp ingenium was exalted. But this man was also hindered in his course by the multitude of the learned and wise seeming men, that he was never able peacefully to confer with others of the knowledge and understanding he had of nature. And therefore in his writings he rather mocked these busybodies, and doth not show them altogether what he was, yet nevertheless there is found with him well grounded the aforenamed harmonia, which without doubt he had imparted to the learned, if he had not found them rather worthy of subtle vexation than to be instructed in greater arts and sciences. He thus, with a free and careless life, lost his time, and left unto the world their foolish pleasure. And there is another really long asterisk here, so let me get into that. The asterisk here. Here the author of the Fama denies that Paracelsus was the brother of the fraternity, and yet shows that he had full knowledge of Paracelsus's teaching. The reason for this is plain. Although Andrea used the name Christian Rosenkreuz as being the founder, he yet feared that it might be possible to be found out he had written the Fama, and to make sure that he should not be connected with it, he denies that he is a brother of the order of Paracelsians, or Hermetics, by denying that Paracelsus is a brother of the fraternity of R.C. The book M, which is mentioned throughout the Fama, is not a book and is used in the same sense as we use it when we say that after the death the quote-unquote book on the other side will be open, wherein all our deeds, be they good or bad, are recorded, and according to which our punishment shall be meted out to us. Okay, that's the end of that. So back to the Fama. Fraternitatis. But that we do not forget our loving father, brother C.R., he, after many painful travels and his fruitless true instructions, returned again to Germany, the which he heartily loved, by reason of the alterations which were shortly to come, and of the strange and dangerous contentions. There, although he could have bragged with his art, but especially of the transmutation of metals, yet did he esteem more heaven and men the citizens thereof than all the vainglory and pomp. Nevertheless, he builded a fitting and neat habitation, in which he ruminated his voyage and philosophy, and reduced them together in a true memorial. In this house he spent a great deal of time in mathematics, and made many fine instruments ex omnibus hujus artis partibus, whereof there is but little remaining to us, as hereafter you shall understand. After 5 years came again into his mind the wished for reformation, and in regard of it he doubted of the aid and help of others, although he himself was painful, lusty, and unwearisome. However, he undertook with some few adjoining with him to attempt the same, whereof he desired to that end to have out of his first cloister, to which he bare a great affection, 3 of his brethren, brother G.V., brother I.A., and brother I.O., who had some more knowledge of the arts than at the time many others had. He did bind those 3 unto himself, to be faithful, diligent, and secret, as also to commit carefully to writings all that which he should direct and instruct them in, to the end that those which were to come, and through a special revelation should be received into this fraternity, might not be deceived of the least syllable and word. After this manner began the fraternity of the Rosy Cross, first by 4 persons only, and then was made the magical language and writing, with a large dictionary which we yet daily use to God's praise and glory, and to find great wisdom therein. I wonder if that's I wonder if the magic dictionary or the magical writing could be something out of the Voynich manuscript, because it does have a little bit of German, I think, at the very end of the book, which isn't part of the crazy writing. Anyways, they made also the first part of the book M, but in respect to that, the labor was too heavy, and the unspeakable concourse of the sick hindered them. And also, whilst his new building, called the Sancti Spiritus, was now finished, they concluded to draw and receive yet other more into their fraternity. To this end was chosen brother R.C., his deceased father's brother's son, brother B., a skillful painter, G.G., and D.P., their secretary, all Germans except I.A., who so in all they were 8 in number. all bachelors and vowed virginity, by whom was collected a book or volume of that which man can desire, wish, or hope for. Although we do not now freely confess that the world is much amended within 100 years, yet we are sure that our axiomata shall immovably remain unto the world's end, and also the world in her highest and last age shall not attain to see anything else. For our rota, R-O-T-A in big capital letters, whatever that means, takes her beginning from the day when God spake fiat, F-I-A-T in big capital letters. Let me just double check something here. Okay, yeah, everything's working. Okay, so let me go back. For our rota takes her beginnings from the day when God spake fiat, and when shall end when he shall speak periet, P-E-R-E-A-T, capital letters. Yet God's clock striketh every minute, where ours scarce striketh perfect hours. We also steadfastly believe that if our brethren and fathers had lived in this our present and clear light, they would more roughly have handled the Pope, Mahomet, scribes, artists, and sophisters, and showed themselves more helpful, not simply with signs and wishes, sighs and wishes of their end and consummation. Interesting. Let me go back to that one because I kind of butchered that sentence. We also steadfastly believe that if our brethren and fathers had lived in this our present and clear light, they would more roughly have handled the Pope, Mohammed, scribes, artists, and sophisters, and showed themselves more helpful, not simply with sighs and wishings of their end and consummation. When now these 8 brethren had disposed and ordered all things in such a manner as there was not now need of any great labor, and also that every one was sufficiently instructed and able perfectly to discourse of secret and manifest philosophy, they would not remain any longer together. But as in the beginning they had agreed, they separated themselves into several countries, because that not only their axiomata might be in secret, be more profoundly examined by the learned, but that they themselves, if in some country or other observed anything or perceived some error, might inform one another of it. Their agreement was this, quote, first, that none of them should profess any other thing than to cure the sick, and that gratis, so free. Second, none of the posterity should be constrained to wear one certain kind of habit, but therein to follow the custom of the country. Third, that every year upon the day C, they should meet together at the house of the Sancti Spiritus, or write the cause of his absence. Fourth, every brother should look about for a worthy person who after his decease might succeed him. Fifth, the word RC should bear their seal, mark, and character. Sixth, the fraternity should remain secret 100 years. Interesting. Okay, so then that's the end of that, and then there is an asterisk, and I'll read this asterisk. Okay, good. So the asterisk says, it is unnecessary to say that the house of Sancti Spiritus is not a house in the literal sense, but is a place, a condition within a place, and this meeting is still kept up by initiates at the present time. That RC is not the seal of the Rosicrucians at the present day is certain, nor was it at the time of Andrea, after the fraternity of which he was then a member changed its name to that of the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross. That the fraternity should remain secret for 100 years had a meaning, but it did not mean literal years, as the words 100 were used to hide the esoteric meaning. Interesting. And of course, she's not going to tell us what that means. The 6 articles, they bound themselves one to another to keep. 5 of the brethren departed. Only the brethren B and D remained with the father, brother R, C, a whole year. When these likewise departed, then remained by him his cousin and brother I.O., so that he hath all the days of his life with him 2 of his brethren. And although that as yet the church was not cleansed, nevertheless we know that they did think of her, and that with longing desire they looked for, Okay. Every year they assembled together with joy, and made a full resolution of that which they had done. There must certainly have been great pleasure to hear truly and without invention related and rehearsed all the wonders which God hath poured out here and there throughout the world. Every one may hold it out for certain that such persons as were sent and joined together by God in the heavens and chosen out of the wisest of men as have lived in many ages, did live together above all others in highest unity, greatest secrecy, and most kindness one another. After such a most laudable sort they did spend their lives, but altogether they were free from all diseases and pain, yet notwithstanding they could not live and pass their time appointed by God. The first of this fraternity which died in England was I.O., as Brother C. long before had foretold him. He was very expert and well learned in Kabbalah, as his book called H. Witnesseth. In England, he is much spoken of, and chiefly because he cured a young Earl of Norfolk of leprosy. They had concluded that as much as possible could be, their burial place should be kept secret, as at this day it is not known unto us what has become of some of them. Yet each one's place was supplied with a fit successor. This we will confess publicly by these presents, to the honor of God, that what secrets I don't know what that says. What secrets soever we have learned out of the book of M, although before our eyes we behold the image and pattern of all the world, yet are there not shown unto us misfortunes nor hour of death, the which only is known to God himself, who thereby would have us keep in continual readiness. But therefore, more in our confession, but hereof more in our confession, where we set down 37 reasons wherefore we now do make known our fraternity and proffer such high mysteries freely, without constraint and reward. Also, we do promise more gold than both the Indies bring to the King of Spain, for Europe is with child, and will bring forth a strong child who shall stand in need of a great Godfather's gift. After the death of I.O., Brother R.C. rested not, but as soon as he could, he called the rest together, and then, as we suppose, his grave was made, although hitherto we, who were the latest, did not know when our loving father R.C. died, and had no more but the bare names of the beginners, and all their successors to us. Yet here came into our memory a secret, which brought dark and hidden words and speeches of the 100 Years. Brother A., the successor of D., who was of the last and second row of succession, and had lived amongst many of us, did impart unto us the third row in succession. Otherwise we must confess that after the death of said A, none of us had any manner known anything of Brother R.C. and of his first fellow brethren. Then that which was extent of them in our philosophical bibliotheca, amongst which our axiomata was held for the chiefest, rotamundi for the most artificial, and proteus for the most profitable. Likewise, we do not certainly know if these of the second row have been of like wisdom as the first, and if they were admitted to all things. It shall be declared hereafter to the gentle reader not only that we have heard of the burial of Brother R.C., but also it shall be made manifest publicly by the foresight, suffering, and commandment of God, whom we most faithfully obey, that if we shall be answered discreetly and Christian-like, we will not be ashamed to set forth publicly in print our names and surnames, our meetings, or anything else that may be required at our hands. Now, the true and fundamental relation of the finding out of the high illuminated man of God, fraternity CRC, is this. After that A in Gallia Narbonense, was deceased, there succeeded in his place our loving brother N.N. This man, after he had repaired unto us to take the solemn oath of fidelity and secrecy, informed us bona fide that A had comforted him in telling him that this fraternity should ere long not remain so hidden, but should be to all the whole German nation helpful, needful, and commendable, of the which he was not in any wise in his estate ashamed. The year following, after he had performed his school rite and was minded now to travel, being for that purpose sufficiently provided with fortunatus purse, he thought, he being a good architect, that's a clue right there, to alter something of his building and to make it more fit. In such renewing, he lighted upon the memorial table, which was cast of brass, and contained all the names of the brethren with some few other things. This he would transfer into another more fitting vault, for when or where Brother R.C. died, or in what country he was buried, was by our predecessor concealed and unknown to us. This table was struck a great nail somewhat strong, so that when it was with force drawn out of it, took with it an indifferent big stone out of the thin wall or plastering of the hidden door, and so unlocked or uncovered the door. Thereat we did with joy and longing throw down the rest of the wall, and cleared the door, upon which was written in great letters, Post CXX Annos Patibo, with the year of the Lord under it. Huh. Excuse me. Let me just double check to see how long this. Okay. With the year of the Lord under it. Therefore we gave God thanks and let it rest that same night. Okay, hold on. And let it rest that same night. Because first we would overlook our rota, but we refer ourselves again to the confession, for what we hear published is done for the help of those that are worthy, but to the unworthy, God willing, it will be of small profit. For like as our door was after so many years wonderfully discovered, also there shall be open a door to Europe, when the wall is removed, which already doth appear, and with great desire is expected of many. And here's an asterisk with a pretty long footnote, so I'll read the asterisk. Starts saying, the foregoing is again symbolic of the true initiation. It does no more refer to a grave of the dead as the profane understand it than does sulfur when spoken of in divine alchemy, meaning the sulfur that can be bought in the store. It is a fact that the architect in Masonic initiation is one of the chief symbols, and even the profane know that it has no reference to the building of a house, but to that temple wherein the soul of man, linked with the Spirit of God, dwells. The neophyte, when he first begins, has the house, but this house must be developed and changed a great deal. To a certain extent, this work is in the dark, and he will encounter the, quote, terror of the threshold, unquote, that most awful of all beings. If he masters this, he will suddenly light upon the memorial tablet, and he will see the light. It takes a good architect to get thus far, and when he begins the work and has mastered the terror, he will find out but a thin wall between him and that which he seeks. After he has done this, he may well give thanks to God and rest for the night. It is a fact that, as then said in the Fama, the unworthy cannot understand this, even though it were more fully explained, but the worthy will know and will find the door to and through the true initiation. The prophecy that the door of Europe will be soon open has long since come true, as witnesses of the works of Hargrave Jennings, and later the works of that of great subliminal soul Edward Maitland, who nobly helped by Anna Kingsford. That which now follows concerning the resting place must not be taken in its literal sense. The Christian Rosicrucian is not and never was a person or individual, but is a character, a principle that lives today, as it did when the Fama was penned. The whole story of the unearthing of the grave was to the finish represents the initiation of the neophyte, and it is symbolic. It is well for the reader to remember what is said in the earlier part of the Fama, quote, as in every several kernel, I pointed this out too, as in every several kernel is contained a whole tree or fruit, so likewise is included in the little body of man the whole great world, whose religion, policy, health, members, nature, language, words, and works are agreeing, sympathizing in an equal tune and melody with God, heaven, and earth. Unquote. Remembering this, then, it will be seen that everything be spoken of in the following must of necessity be a part of man, and in the true initiation every part must be brought out. All right, that was a pretty long footnote. Okay. All right, so I'm going to read this last paragraph here in this section. Oh, no, it continues, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, okay. I got to take a quick break, you guys. So I will be back in 5 or 6 minutes, something like that. So I'll throw in a little bit of music for some of that period of time. But I will be back as soon as possible. Nature calls. I need to refill the drink, wet my whistle, because I'm kind of on a roll here. So, and I'll be able to do this for a little while longer at least. We can get through a lot of this book. Anyways, I'm going to put up the break sign, and I will be back in about 5 or 6 minutes. Okay. we're back. Okay. Continuing. In the morning following, we opened the door, and there appeared to our sight a vault of 7. 7 is the number of the true initiation. Sides and 7 corners, every side 5 foot broad, and in the height of 8 foot. Although the sun never shines on this vault, nevertheless it was enlightened with another sun, and this situated in the upper part of the center of the ceiling. In the midst, instead of a tombstone, was a round altar covered with a plate of brass, and thereon this engraven: ACRC hoc universi compendium unius milli sepulchrum feci, or feci. Round about the first circle or brim stood Jesu mihi omnia. In the middle were 4 figures enclosed in circles whose circumscription was: 1. Nequaquam vacuum, 2. Legis jugum, 3. Libertas Evangelii, and 4. Die Gloria Intacta. This is all clear and bright, as also the 7th side and 2 heptagons. So we kneeled down together and gave thanks to the sole wise, sole mighty, and sole eternal God, who hath taught us more than all men's wits could have found out. Praised his holy name. Sorry, my cat's scratching at something. This vault was parted in 3 parts: the upper part or ceiling, the wall or side, the ground or floor. Of the upper part you shall understand no more at this time, but that it was divided according to the 7 sides and the triangle which was in the bright center. But what therein is contained, you that are desirous of our society shall, God willing, behold the same with your own eyes. Every side or wall is parted into 10 squares, every one with their several figures and sentences, as they are truly showed and set forth concentratum here in our book. The bottom again is parted in the triangle, but because therein is described the power and rule on the inferior governors, we leave to manifest the same, for fear of the abuse by the evil and ungodly world. But those that are provided and stored with the heavenly antidote do without fear or hurt tread on and bruise the head of the old and evil serpent, which this our age is well fitted for. Every side or wall had a door for a chest, wherein there lay diverse things, especially all our books, which otherwise we had besides the vocabulario of the Theophrastus Paraclesis of Hohenheim. These which daily unfalsified we do participate. Herein also we found the itinerarium and the vita, whence this relation for the most part is taken. In another chest were looking glasses of diverse virtues, asterisks, as also in other places were little bells, burning lamps, and chiefly wonderful artificial songs. Generally all was done to that end, that if it should happen after many years the fraternity should come to nothing, they might by this only vault be restored again. And I'm going to go, so the looking glass of diverse virtues is the asterisk. So we'll take a look at this. This proves conclusively that the magic mirror, we see that a lot in depictions in art, don't we? The magic mirror was known and used many hundred years ago. The Fama was written more than 300 years ago, and these mirrors were then known to initiation, or else Andrea could not have mentioned them. The only difference being that the mirror of today is prepared in such a scientific way that it will hold the ether for any length of time, and is a perfect glass in every respect. To Dr. Randolph, more than to anyone else, this is due the thanks for most of the scientific searching on this vast and important subject. Others have written on this subject, but no one has been or is honest enough to give them credit, except perhaps Freeman B. Dowd. Okay. Interesting. So, returning to the Fama, Fraternitatis, now as we had not yet seen the dead body of our careful and wise father, and therefore removed the altar aside, then we lifted up a strong plate of brass, and found fair worthy body, whose whole and unconsumed, as the same is here lively counterfeited with all the ornaments and attires. In his hand he held a parchment called T, and down here it just says, there's an asterisk, T is Hebrew Tau, see the Kabbalah for its meaning. Parchment called T, the which next unto the Bible is our greatest treasure, which ought not to be delivered to the censure of the world. At the end of this book standeth this following elogium: Granum pectori Jesu institutum. CRX ex nobly. Oh. Well, I'm not going to read the. I guess I could read it. I'll try. I'll try to read the Latin. Ex nobly atque splendila Germanae arsi familia oriundus virsui seculi divinis revelationibus subtilissimis imaginationibus indefessis laboribus ad colesta atque humana mysteria arcanava admissus postquam quam arabico at africano itineribus collegerat, yeah, plusquam regium atque imperatorium gasum suo seculo mundum. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so, yeah, a whole bunch of Latin here. And then it just lists a bunch of different people, successors. And then at the end was written, so this is all written on this piece of metal, I guess. And at the end is written ex Deo nascimur in Jesu morimur por spiritum sanctum revivissimus. At that time was already dead Brother I.O. and Brother D, but their burial place, where it is said to be found. Where is it said to be found? We doubt not, but our Father Signor hath the same, and some special thing laid in the earth, and perhaps likewise hidden. We also hope that this our example will stir up others more diligently to inquire after their names, which we have therefore published, and to search for the place of their burial. The most part of them, by reason of their practice and physics, are yet known and praised among very old folks, so might perhaps our casa be enlarged, or at least be better cleared. Concerning minitum mundum, we found it kept in another little altar, truly more finer than can be imagined by understanding man, but we will leave him underscribed until we shall be truly answered upon this our true-hearted fama. So we have covered it again with the plates, and set the altar therein, shut the door, and made it sure with all our seals. Moreover, by instruction and command of our rota, there are come to cite some books, among which is contained M, which were made instead of household care by the praiseworthy M.P. Finally we departed, the one from the other, and left the natural heirs in possession of our jewels. And so we do expect the answer and judgment of the learned and unlearned. Howbeit we know after a time there will now be a general information both of divine and humane things, according to our desire and the expectation of others. For it is fitting that before the rising of the sun there should appear and break forth aurora, or some clearness or divine light in the sky, and so in the meantime some few which shall give their names may join together thereby to increase the number in respect of our fraternity, and make a happy and wished for beginning of our philosophical canons prescribed to us by our brother R.C., and be partakers with us of our treasures, which never can fail to be wasted in all humanity and love, to be eased of this world's labors, and not walk so blindly to the knowledge of the wonderful works of God. But that also every Christian may know of what religion and beliefs we are. We confess to have the knowledge of Jesus Christ, as the same now in these last days, and chiefly in Germany, most clear and pure, us professed, and is nowadays cleansed and void of all swerving people, heretics, and false prophets. In certain and noted countries maintained, defended, and propagated. Also, we use two sacraments, as they are instituted with all forms and ceremonies of the first and renowned church. In Politia, we acknowledge the Roman Empire and Quartum Monarchiam for our Christian lead. Too bad for that. Albeit we know that alterations be at hand, and would fain impart the same with all our hearts to other godly learned men, notwithstanding our handwriting which is in our hands, no man except God alone can make it common, nor any other unworthy person is able to bereave us of it. But we shall help with secret aid to so good a cause as God shall permit or hinder us. For our God is not blind as the heathen's fortuna, but it is the church ornament and the honor of the temple. Our philosophy also is not a new invention, but as Adam ever after his fall hath received it, and as Moses and Solomon used it, also it ought not much to be doubted of, or contradicted by other opinions or meanings. But seeing the truth is peaceable, brief, and always like herself in all things, and especially accorded by with Jesus in omni parte in all members, and as he is the true image of the Father, so is she his image. So it shall not be said, this is true according to philosophy, but true according to theology, and wherein Plato, Aristotle, Pythagoras, and others did hit the mark, and wherein Enoch, Abraham, Moses, Solomon did excel, but especially wherewith that wonderful book the Bible agreeth. All that same concurreth together and maketh a sphere or globe, whose total parts are equidistant from the center, as hereof more at large and more plain shall be spoken of in Christianity Conference in Den Boek des Levens. I think I might have missed a. Okay, yeah, I did. I missed an asterisk. So going back to the asterisk, also we use two sacraments as they are instituted with all forms and ceremonies of the first and renewed church. So the asterisk is this: while the first part of the Fama might have been easily misunderstood by those seeking the true knowledge, it seems impossible that this part could have been misunderstood. Luther had started his great work with success, and as we of today acknowledge, he practiced and taught esoteric Christianity. He knew of the mysteries of the Hermetics, latter Rosicrucians, and that he was an initiate cannot be doubted when we examine the seal that he used. The inner, quote-unquote, inner faith of Andrea is very plainly that of the rose and the cross, the esoteric Christianity which had been so miserably abused. Okay, back to the text. But now concerning, and chiefly in this our age, the ungodly and accursed gold making, which hath gotten so much the upper hand, whereby under color of it many renegades and roguish people do use villainies and cozen and abuse the credit which is given them. Yea, nowadays men of discretion do hold the transmutation of metals to be the highest point and fastigium in philosophy. This is all their intent and desire, and that God would be the most esteemed by them and honored, which God make great stores of gold, the which with unpremeditate prayers they have hope to obtain of the knowing God and searcher of all hearts. But we by these presents publicly testify that the true philosophers are far of another mind, esteeming little of the making of gold, which is but a paragon. For besides that they have 1,000 better things. We say with our loving brother C.R.C., Physique arium nisi quatum arum, for unto him the whole nature is detected, or is dected, okay? He doth not rejoice that he can make gold, and that, as saith Christ, the devils are obedient unto him, but is glad that he seeth the heavens open, the angels of God ascending and descending, and his name written in the book of life. Also we do testify under the name Chimia. Many books and pictures are set forth in the Tumilium Gloriae Dei, as we will name them in their due season, and will give to the pure-hearted a catalogue to register of them. We pray all learned men to take heed of these kind of books, for the enemy never resteth, but soweth his weeds till a stronger one doth root them out. So according to the will and meaning of the fraternity of RRC, we his brethren request again all the learned in Europe who shall read, sent forth in 5 languages, this our fama and confessio, that it would please them with good deliberation to ponder this our offer, and to examine most nearly and sharply their arts, behold the present time with diligence, and to declare their mind, either communicato, concilio, or singulartem by print. And although at this time we make no mention either of our names or meetings, yet nevertheless every one's opinions shall assuredly come to our hands. Whoso gives but his name to speak with some of us, either by word of mouth, or else if there be some left in writing. And this we say for a truth, that whosoever shall earnestly and from the heart bear affection unto us, it shall benefit to him in goods, body and soul. But he that is false-hearted or greedy or of riches, the same first of all shall not be in any manner or wise to hurt us. Sorry. The same, first of all, shall not be in any manner or wise to hurt us, but bring himself to utter ruin and destruction. Also, our building, although 100,000 people had very near seen and beheld the same, shall forever remain untouched, undestroyed, and hidden to the wicked world. Sub umbra alorum torum Jehovah. All right. All right, and here is the confession. Let me just see real quick, guys, how much further we got in this book here. Oh, of course, it's not going to tell me the page numbers. Just give me a second. 212. Wow. Where were we? Okay. Well, I've sort of just lost myself here. There we go. The confessions. Okay. Well, what page are we? 114. And we've been going on for how long now? I think it's been an hour and 30 or 40 minutes. Okay. Well, I'll keep going. I'll keep doing this. I see, Chill Pill. What 5:15 in the morning for you, huh? Welcome, guys, in the chat. Just taking a quick look over there. I'm gonna just bring it back here, and we'll just continue with the confession. Take a little sip. Probably go for another half hour or something like that. The first literature on the Rosicrucian fraternity to appear was the Fama Fraternitatis, which, as has already been stated, appeared in 1614 and 1615. It is not exactly known. In the same year, the Confessio appeared, as also some of the other works of not as great importance. The following is the preface to the Confessio, and notes are added throughout the entire Confessio so that it will be easily understood by the average reader. Okay. Preface to the Confessio. Here, gentle reader, you shall find incorporated in our confession 37 reasons of our purpose and intention, which, according to thy pleasure, thou mayst seek out and compare together, considering within thyself if they be sufficient to allure thee. Verily, it requires no small pains to induce any one to believe that doth not yet appear, but when it shall be revealed in the full blaze of day, I suppose we should be ashamed of such questionings. And as we do now securely call the Pope Antichrist, which was formerly a capital offense in every place, so we now certainly that what we here keep secret we shall in the further thunder forth with uplifted voice, the which, reader, which with us desire with all thy heart, that it may happen most speedily. Fratres R.C. It will be noted that the author calls the Pope Antichrist. It is an easy matter to understand why this is. The Masonic order has ever been anti-Catholic and against the Pope. It is not positively known whether Andrea Christian Rosenkreuz was a Mason or not, but it is a positive fact that the old Hermetics, later the Paracelsians, were at one time known as and part of mystic Masonry, and therefore still had some sympathy in general with Masonry at the time of Andrea's writing, the Confession and the Fama. Both these orders stood for freedom and liberty, and there certainly was a close connecting link. Masonry was the exoteric, while Paracelsianism was the esoteric part of one great whole. It is therefore easy to see that while the Pope was against freedom of speech, the Masons and Hermetics, being for freedom and liberty, were only consistent in calling the Pope Antichrist. On a very interesting point. Confessio Fraternitatis RC ad Eruditus Europe. Chapter 1. Whoever you have heard, O mortals, concerning our fraternity by the trumpet sound of the Fama RC, do not either believe it hastily or willfully suspect it. It is Jehovah who, seeing how the world is falling into decay and near to its end, doth hasten it again to its beginning, inverting the course of nature. Whoa. If you guys have watched the other 1500 videos I did with the flood of Rome and now recently the Felix flood, and in that document that guy talks about in the 1500s, like why is everything happening at once? That's just an interesting comment here. And so, inverting the course of nature, and so that heretofore hath seen sought with great pains and daily labor, he hath doth lay open now to those thinking of no such thing, offering it to the willing and thrusting it on the reluctant, that it may become to the good that which will smooth the troubles of human life and break the violence of unexpected blows of fortune, but to the ungodly that which will augment their sins and their punishments. Although we believe ourselves to have sufficiently unfolded to you in the Fama the nature of our order, wherein we follow the will of our most excellent Father, nor can by any suspected of heresy or any attempt against the commonwealth, we hereby do condemn the East and the West, meaning the Pope and Mohammed, for their blasphemies against our Lord Jesus Christ, and offer to the chief head of the Roman Empire our prayers, secrets, and great treasures of gold. Yet we have thought good, for the sake of the learned, to add somewhat more to this, and to make a better explanation if there anything be too deep, hidden, and set down over dark in the Fama, or certain reasons altogether omitted. Thereby we hoped the learned will be more addicted to us and easier to approve our counsel. So before we get into chapter 2, there's an asterisk. I'm going to go down and read it. The asterisk says, the Rosicrucians have ever believed in the Christ. They believe in the teaching of the Christ and the acknowledgement him as master, or the elder brother as they are pleased to call him. His teachings in their pure form are held sacred by every true Rosicrucian and have ever been held as such since the time of the Christ. Interesting. So chapter 2, concerning the amendment of philosophy, we have declared that the same is altogether weak and faulty. Nay, whilst many have alleged that she is sound and strong, to us it is certain that she fetches her last breath. But as commonly, even in the same place where there breakest forth a new disease, nature discovereth a remedy against the same. So amidst so many infirmities of philosophy there do appear the right means, and unto our fatherland sufficiently offered, whereby she may become sound again, and new or renovated may appear to a renovated world. Interesting terminology there. No other philosophy we have than that which is the head of all faculties, sciences, and arts, which containeth much of theology and medicine, but little of jurisprudence, which searcheth heaven and earth with exquisite analysis, or to speak briefly thereof, which doth sufficiently manifest the microcosmos man. Therefore, if some of the more orderly in the number of the learned shall respond to our fraternal invitation, they shall find among us far other and greater wonders than those they theretofore did believe, marvel at, and profess. And then before chapter 3, and then there's an asterisk, so I'll go down. Oh, this is a long one. Okay. All right. It's not that long. Well, it's pretty long. So the asterisk says, the Rosicrucians have ever and today believe in the doctrine of the microcosmos, which considers man and containing all the potentialities of the whole universe, or microcosmos. The microcosmos and the macrocosmos are one the small and the other the large world. They are one constellation, one influence, one breath, one harmony, one time, one metal, one fruit. As the higher, so the lower. As the lower, so the higher. Dr. Waite, an exoteric historian who dares to write on esoteric matters, which he does not understand, accuses Rosicrucians of the earlier times of stealing, as it were, the doctrine of Paraclesis. By doing so, he shows his ignorance of these things. Paraclesis, as all great scholars admit, he was a Hermetic. As has been stated many times before, the Hermetic order became the order of Paraclesians after the death of Paraclesis, and after the Fama Fraternitatis appeared, they took the name of the Rosicrucians. It will be therefore as perfectly plain to even the most ignorant that the teachings of the Paraclesis, the quote, dreamer and seer of Hohenheim, quote unquote, are the teachings of the Rosicrucians, are the teachings of the Paraclesis. There you go, chapter 3. Wherefore, to declare briefly our meaning hereof, it becomes us to labor carefully that the surprise of our challenge may be taken from you, to show plainly that such secrets are not lightly esteemed by us, and not to spread an opinion abroad among the vulgar that the story concerning them as a foolish thing. For it is not absurd to suppose many are overwhelmed with the conflict of thought which is occasioned by our unhoped graciousness, unto whom as yet are known the wonders of the sixth age, or who by reason of the course of the world esteem the things to come like unto the present, and, hindered by the obstacles of their age, live no otherwise in the world than as men blind, who in the light of noon discern nothing only by feeling. Chapter 4. Now concerning the first part, we hold that the meditation of our Christian Father on all subjects which from the creation of the world have been invented, brought forth, and propagated by human ingenuity, though God's revelation through the service of angels or spirits, or through the sagacity of understanding, or through the experience of long observation, are so great, that if all books should perish, and by God's almighty sufferance all writings and all learning should be lost, yet posterity will be able thereby to lay a new foundation or sciences, and to erect a new citadel of truth, the which perhaps would not be so hard to do as if one should begin to pull down and destroy the old, ruinous building, then enlarge the force court, afterwards bringing light into the private chambers, and then change the doors, staples, and other things according to our intention. It seems very cryptic. Therefore, it must not be expected that the newcomers shall attain at once all their weighty secrets. They must proceed step by step from the smaller to the greater, and must not be retarded by difficulties. There's an asterisk here, which I will read. The asterisk says, "It is plain to see that the true initiation is here hinted at, as it is plainly tells us that the newcomer must proceed step by step, and must not allow himself to be retarded in his onward progress. That is, he must not be let doubted fear and discouragements have anything to do with his progress." And I think that's it, yeah. Continuing, "Wherefore we should not freely acquiesce in the only truth that then seek through so many winding and labyrinths, if only it had pleased God to lighten unto us the sixth candelabrum. Were it not sufficient for us to fear neither hunger, poverty, disease, or age? Were it not an excellent thing to live always so as if you had lived from the beginning of the world, and should still live to the end thereof? So to live in one place that neither the people which dwell upon the Ganges could hide anything, nor those which live in Peru might be able to keep secrets their counsels from thee? So to read in one only book, the astral, as to discern, understand, and remember whatsoever in all other books, which heretofore have been, are now, and hereafter shall come out, hath been, is, and shall be learned out of them, so to sing or play that instead of stony rocks you could draw pearls, instead of wild beasts, spirits, instead of Pluto you could soften the mighty princes of the world? O mortals, O mortals, diverse in the counsel of God and your convenience, who hath decreed at this time to increase and enlarge the number of our fraternity, the which we with such joy have undertaken, as we have heretofore obtained this great treasure without our merits, yea, without any hope of expectation, the same we purpose with such fidelity to put in practice, that neither compassion or pity for our own children, which some of us in the fraternity have, shall move us, since we know that these unhoped for good things cannot be inherited, nor be conferred promiscuously." And then there is an asterisk. The Rosicrucians have never taught, nor do they at this day, the doctrine of celibacy. This doctrine is upheld by the order of the Illuminati, but is a direct violation of the laws of God and nature, which say, quote, "Be thou fruitful and replenish the earth," unquote. This also, the last few lines, teaches, as is taught today, that these secret things cannot be inherited, and therefore a ceremonial initiation is necessarily false, but that man must first prove his worth before he can receive these things. This doctrine is fully set forth in the chapter on initiation, which we read. And continuing, chapter 5, if there be anybody now which on the other side will complain of our discretion, that we offer our treasuries so freely and indiscriminately, and do not rather regard more the godly wise, or princely persons than the common people, with him we are in no wise angry, for the accusation is not without moment, But withal we affirm that we have by no means made common property of our arena, albeit they resound in 5 languages within the ears of the vulgar, both because, as we well know, they will not move gross wits, and because the worth of those who shall be accepted into our fraternity will not be measured by their curiosity, but by the rule and pattern of our revelations. 1,000 times the unworthy may clamor, 1,000 times they may present themselves. Yet God hath commanded our ears that they should hear none of them, and hath so encompassed us about with his clouds that unto us, his servants, no violence can be done. Wherefore now no longer are we beheld by human eyes, unless they have received strength borrowed from the eagle. Whatever that means. For the rest, it hath been necessary that the Fama should be set forth in everyone's mother tongue, lest those should not be defrauded of the knowledge thereof, whom, although they be unlearned, God hath not excluded from the happiness of this fraternity, which is divided into degrees, as those who dwell in Damcar, who have a far different politic order from the other Arabians, for there do govern only understanding men, who by the king's permission make particular laws, according to which example the government shall also be instituted in Europe, when that shall come to pass which must precede, when our trumpet shall resound with full voice and with no provocations of meaning, when namely those things of which a few now whisper and darken with enigmas shall openly fill the earth, even after many secret chafings of pious people against the Pope's tyranny, and after timid reproof, he with great violence and by a great onset was cast down from his seat and abundantly trodden under foot, whose final fall is reserved for an age when he shall be torn in pieces by nails, and a final groan shall end his ass's braying, the which, as we know, is already manifest to many learned men in Germany, as their tokens and secret congratulations bear witness. Wow, the longest sentence. Okay, so I got to go back because there are 2 different asterisks. So going back to the beginning of this very long paragraph / sentence, lest those should not be defrauded of the knowledge thereof, whom although they be unlearned, and that's where the asterisk is, I'll read that. The Rosicrucian does not care how unlettered a man or woman may be, if they have the right material in their makeup, and if their desire is of the right kind, not for self, but for the good of the universal whole, then they may enter on the path to true initiation. And if they prove worthy, they will be admitted on the same conditions that those of their brethren who may be learned in the knowledge of the books in universities. 'Tis not the learning that makes men great, but the lofty soul that they possess. A man may have passed through all the universities in the world and may possess all the degrees that can be granted. If he has a small, hungry, bigoted, intolerant soul, he will amount to nothing, and he can no more enter the temple of Rosicrucis than can the degenerate or lust-eaten weakling. Souls are wanting, and not book learning. Of course, we must admit that the man who has a lofty soul and of university learning combined can do more good than the one who has only a lofty soul and no learning, but before God they stand as equals. All right? And then here we have the Pope's tyranny, and after timid reproof, he with great violence and with a great onset was cast down from his seat and abundantly trodden under foot, whose final fall, asterisk. And here we have the asterisk says, the Pope's fall will no doubt come true within the coming time, as people will overthrow churchism, but the prophecy of his being trodden under foot and torn to pieces is allegorical, and should not be taken literally, as it is not so meant. A man may suffer 1,000 deaths and yet not have any punishment inflicted on his person. It is here where these so-called historians make their great mistake, by taking allegorical writings in their literal sense. Were all books to be written so that all could understand them, there would be no secrets to unravel. These things must be read, quote unquote, between the lines, to be understood, to, quote, get wisdom, and all things shall be added unto you, unquote. And I think that's it, yeah. Okay. So, chapter 6 of the Confession. We would here relate and declare that all the time from the year 1378, interesting date, when our Christian father was born, till now hath happened, that alterations he hath seen in the world these 160 years of his life, 106 years of his life, what he left after his happy death to be attempted by our fathers and by us, but brevity which we do observe will not permit at this present to make rehearsal of it. It is enough for those which do not despise our declaration to have touched upon it, thereby to prepare the way for their more close union and association with us. Truly, to whom it is permitted to behold, read, and henceforth teach himself those great characters which the Lord God has inscribed upon the world's mechanism, and which he repeats through the mutations of empires, such an one is already ours, though as yet unknown to himself. And as we know he will not neglect our invitation, so, in like manner, we adjure all deceit, for we promise that no man's uprightness and hopes shall deceive him who shall make himself known to us under the seal of secrecy and desire our familiarity. But to the false and to the impostors and to those who seek other things than wisdom, we witness by these presents publicly, we cannot be betrayed unto them to our hurt, nor be known to them without the will of God. But they shall certainly be partakers of that terrible communication spoken in our Fama, and their impious designs shall fall back upon their own heads, while our treasures shall remain untouched, till the lion shall rise and exact them as his right, receive and employ them for the establishment of his kingdom. Okay. Hold on a second, guys. I just got to feed my cat real quick. I'll be right back. Apparently she doesn't want to eat, she just wants to play, so tough luck for her. Chapter 7. One thing should here, O mortals, be established by us, that God hath declared to the world before her end, which presently thereupon shall ensue, the influx of truth, light, and grandeur, such as he commanded should accompany Adam from paradise and sweeten the misery of man. Wherefore there shall cease all falsehood, darkness, and bondage, which little by little, with the great globe's resolution, hath crept into the arts, works, governments of men, darkening the greater part of them. Okay, that's the end of that sentence, and there's an asterisk, so I'm going to read that real quick. In Germany, by order of the Emperor William, the pamphlet Thou Shalt Not Kill by Tolstoy has been seized and destroyed because it taught men to be human and not kill his fellow man. In America, men, women, and children of all ages and states of health are seized and held while a foul poison is injected into their veins. If death results, no redress can be had. It is the law of their tyrannical government. Surely the author knew what he was talking about. Whoa. Again, this is 1906. Or 1910 is the whichever version this is, but originally this is 1906. Imagine this guy is talking about this is exactly the same situation right now. That stuff like that blows my mind. You read something like that is still such an issue 110 years later. And he's not wrong. I mean, it's exactly the same thing. Even now with the whole vaccine court thing, you can't actually, if something happens, you have to apply for a settlement through a government appointed organization, and you can't even sue the pharmaceutical companies. It's crazy. That's just wow. Thence hath continuing. Thence hath proceeded that innumerable diversity of persuasions, falsities, and heresies, which make choice difficult to the wisest men, seeing on the one part that they were hindered by the reputation of philosophers, and on the other the facts of experience, which, if, as we trust, it can be once removed, and instead thereof a single and self-same rule be instituted, then there will indeed remain thanks to them on which have taken pains therein. But the sum of the so great work shall be attributed to the blessedness of our age. As we now confess that many high intelligences by their writings will be a great furtherance into this Reformation, which is to come, so do we by no means arrogate to ourselves this glory, as if such a work were only imposed on us. But we testify that our Savior Christ, that sooner shall the stones rise up and offer their service than there shall be any want of executors of God's counsel. Sorry. So, yeah. Chapter 8. God indeed hath already sent messengers which should testify his will, to wit, some new stars which have appeared in Serpentarius and Cygnus, the which powerful signs of a great council show forth how for all things which human ingenuity discovers God calls upon his hidden knowledge, as likewise the book of nature, thought it stands open, or just as though, though it stands open truly for all eyes, can be read or understood only by a very few. As in the human head there are 2 organs of hearing, 2 of sight, 2 of smell, and only 1 of speech, and it were but vain to expect speech from the ears or learning from the eyes. So there have been ages which have seen, others which have heard, others again that have smelt and tasted. Now there remains that in a short and swiftly approaching time honor should be likewise given to the tongue, that what formerly saw, heard, and smelt shall finally speak, after the world shall have slept away the intoxication of her poisoned and stupefying chalice, and with an open heart, bare head, and naked feet shall merrily and joyfully go forth to meet the sun rising in the morning. Chapter 9. These characteristics and letters, as God hath here and there incorporated them in the sacred scriptures, so hath he imprinted them most manifestly on the wonderful work of creation, on the heavens, the earth, and on all beasts, so that the mathematician predicts eclipses, so we prognosticate the obscurations of the church, and how long shall they last? From these letters we have borrowed our magical writings, and thence have made ourselves a new language hidden, in which the nature of things is expressed, so that it is no wonder that we are not so eloquent in other tongues, least of all in this Latin, which we know to be by no means in agreement with that of Adam and Enoch, but to have been contaminated by the confusion of Babel. How terribly interesting that comment is. Chapter 10. But this also must by no means be omitted, that while there are yet some eagle's feathers in our way, the interesting, I think they're talking about the quote-unquote Holy Roman Empire, the which do hinder our purpose, we do exhort to the soul only as assiduous and continual study of the sacred scriptures. For he that taketh all his pleasure therein shall know that he hath prepared himself an excellent way to come unto our fraternity. For this is the whole sum of our laws, that as there is not a character in that great miracle of the world which has not a claim to the memory, so those are nearest and likest unto us who do make the Bible the rule of their life, and the end of all their studies, and the compendium of the universal world, from whom we require that not that it should be continually in their mouth, but that they should appropriately apply its true interpretation to all ages of the world. And there's an asterisk, and the asterisk says, the Bible is the greatest textbook of the mystic and occult that we have. It contains the secrets of all true alchemy and mysticism. It contains the secret of the transmutation of the baser metals into pure and shining gold, and it shows the way to find the hidden meaning of the rose and the cross. The Bible must not be taken in its literal sense, which I would agree with, and it was known already at the time of the Fama and the Confession were written. You would think so. What a weird sentence. The Bible must not be taken in its literal sense, and this was known already at the time of the Fama and the Confession were written. Okay. The Andrea, mystically known as Christian Rosicrucians, knew that this is very plain, or he could not have written, quote, but that they should appropriately apply its true interpretation to all ages of the world, unquote, as it just said. Those who wish to read the Bible and understand it in its true light should get the works by these writers and reformers, Anna Kingsford and Dr. Edward Maitland, 2 of the sublimest souls and humanitarians of the 19th century. The works of Reverend George Cheney on the true interpretation of the Bible are also recommended. Well, there you go. Thanks for the recommendations. Continuing chapter 10 of the Confessions. For it is not our custom So to debase the divine oracle, that while there are innumerable expounders of the same, some adhere to the opinions of their party, some make sport of Scripture, as if it were a table of wax to be indifferently made use of by theologians, philosophers, doctors, and mathematicians. Be it our rather be it ours rather to bear witness that from the beginning of the world there hath not been given to men a more excellent, admirable, and wholesome book than the Holy Bible. Blessed is he who possesses it, more blessed is he who reads it, the most blessed of all is he who truly understands it, while he is most like to God whom both understands and obeys it. And there's an asterisk there. This is possibly the greatest and best chapter in the whole confession, and within it are contained the teachings of not only the Rosicrucian fraternity, but of all the ages. Were man to fully understand the sacred and secret teachings contained in the Bible, and then to follow them, he would no longer be a man, but a very God in truth. Chapter 11. Now whatsoever hath been said in the Fama through hatred of impostors against the transmutation of metals and the supreme medicine of the world, we desire to be so understood, that this so great a gift of God we do in no manner set at naught, but as it bringeth not always with it the knowledge of nature, while this knowledge bringeth forth both that and an infinite number of other natural miracles, it is right that we be rather earnest to attain to the knowledge of philosophy, nor attempt excellent wits to the tincture of metals sooner than to the observation of nature. He must needs be insatiable to whom neither poverty, disease, or nor danger can any longer reach, who as one raised above all men hath rule over that which doth anguish, afflict, and pain others, yet will him give himself again to idle things, will build, make wars, and domineer, because he hath of gold sufficient, and of silver inexhaustible fountain. God judgeth far otherwise, who exalteth the lowly, casteth the proud into obscurity. To the silent he sendeth his angels to hold speech with them, but the babblers he driveth into the wilderness, which is the judgment due to the Roman impostor, who now poureth his blasphemy with open mouth against Christ, nor yet in the full light by which Germany hath detected his caves and subterranean passages, will abstain from lying, that thereby he may fulfill the measure of his sins and be found worthy of the axe. Therefore, one day it will come to pass that the mouth of this viper shall be stopped, and his triple crown shall be brought to naught, of which things more fully when we shall have met together. Chapter 12. For conclusion of our confession, we must earnestly admonish you that you cast away, if not all, yet most of the worthless books of pseudo-chymists, who it is a jest to apply the most holy Trinity to vain things, or to deceive men with monstrous symbols and enigmas, or to profit by the curiosity of the credulous. Our age doth produce many such, one of the greatest being a stage player, man with sufficient ingenuity for imposition. Such doth the enemy of human welfare mingled among the good seed, thereby to make the truth more difficult to be believed, which in herself is simple and naked, while falsehood is proud, haughty, and colored with a luster of seeming godly and humane wisdom. Yet that are wise Yet ye that are wise eschew such books, and have recourse to us, who seek not your monies, but offer unto you most willingly our great treasures. We hunt not after your goods with invented lying tinctures, but desire to make you partakers of our goods. We do not reject parables, but invite you to hear the clear and simple explanation of all secrets. We seek not to be received of you, but call you unto our more than kingly houses and palaces by no motion of our own, but, lest you be ignorant of it, as forced thereto by the Spirit of God, commanded by the testament of our most excellent Father, and impelled by the occasion of this present time. Chapter 13. What think you therefore, O mortals, seeing that we sincerely confess Christ, execrate the Pope, addict ourselves to the true philosophy, lead a worthy life, and daily call, entreat, and invite many more into our fraternity, unto whom the same light of God likewise appeareth? Consider you not that having pondered the gifts which are in you, having measured your understanding in the word of God, and having weighed the imperfection and inconsistencies of all the arts, you may at length in the future deliberate with us upon the remedy, cooperate in the work it's another question. Sorry. Having weighed the imperfection and inconsistencies of the arts, you may at length in the future deliberate with us upon the remedy, cooperate in the work of God, and be serviceable to the constitution of your time, on which work these prophets will follow. And prophets is in Profits, that all those gods which nature hath dispersed in every part of the tanguam in centro solis et lunae, then shall you be able to expel from the world all those things which darken human knowledge and hinder action, such as the vain epicycles and eccentric circles. Chapter 14. You, however, for whom it is enough to be serviceable out of curiosity to any ordinance, or who are dazzled by the glistening of gold, or who, though now upright, might be led away by such unexpected great riches into the effeminate, idle, luxurious, and pompous life, do not disturb our sacred silence by your clamor, but think that although there be a medicine which might fully cure all diseases, yet those whom God wishes to try or to chastise shall not be abetted by such opportunity, so that it were able to enrich and instruct the whole world, and liberate it from the innumerable hardships. Yet shall we never be manifested unto any man unless God should favor it. Yea, it shall be so far from him who thinks to be a partaker of our riches against the will of God, that he shall sooner lose his life in seeking us than attain happiness by finding us. Fraternitatis, fraternitis. Oh, you spelled it differently. RC. Excuse me. It just keeps going and going and going. It may be imagined that these manifestos produced a sensation throughout Germany, and many editions were issued. On the one side, cries of heresy and atheism resounded from every corner, and denunciations were very bitter against the one who wrote them. Catholics would have given anything for the author. On the other hand, it attracted thousands of those who were interested in mysticism, alchemy, hermeticism, a purer and nobler religion, etc. Naturally, Andrea and those others who were interested in the Reformation did not come out as being at the head of the movement, but they knew that as the address of such fraternity was known to no one, the author of the manifestos not even being known, the letters would be sent to one of the public departments and would there be open for inspection. In this they are not mistaken, and as suspicion could not be directed to any one, Andrea and his brethren went and examined these letters and obtained the names and addresses of all those that they desired to have associated with themselves. Under ordinary circumstances, these letters would not have been open for public inspection, but it must be remembered that at that time the Catholics were in power, and they were only too glad and willing to hold up to public ridicule anyone who did not agree with them in all matters, and more especially in matters of religion. After Andrea had obtained the names and addresses, and intersected parties received their answers under oath of secrecy, were admitted to the place of meeting, there are a number of historical writers who seem to think that the whole matter was nothing but a farce. The reason for such opinion is easily understood by anyone. The fact that the letters were never claimed caused the people who were not informed to think that there was no such thing. This is what Andrea desired, as no order has ever amounted to anything in such time when its secrets became public property. As has already been stated, these letters, written by those who were really interested, never claimed by the fraternity, and the impression was created that the author of the manifestos really played a joke on the mystics, alchemists, and others at their expense, but as the worthy ones had their very desires fulfilled, no real harm was done. It is said on good authority that these letters are now in the library of Göttingen in Germany, but they are of no value to anyone except as curiosities. There is, however, another value to them, namely, by examining them one might be able to learn who the first members of the fraternity were. Another manuscript I consider of historical value is the copy of admission of Dr. Backstrom in the Society of the Rose Cross. This was first published in the, quote, real History of the Rosicrucians, unquote, by A.E. Waite. The copy of admission was as follows, to which are added such notes which are known to be absolutely correct and authoritative. Copy of the admission of Dr. Backstrom into the Society of the Rosicrucians by Le Comte de Chazelles at the island of Mauritius, I've been reading too long, guys. I think I'm going to have to take a break soon. The island of Mauritius, with the seal of the society, Isle of Mauritius, District of Pemeravuso, 12th September 1794, in the name of XXXXXX, the true and only God manifested in Trinity. I, Sigmund Backstrom, do hereby promise in the most sincere and solemn manner faithfully to observe the following articles during the whole course of my natural life to the best of my knowledge and ability, which articles I hereby confirm by oath and by my proper signature hereunto annexed. One of the worthy members of the august, most ancient and most learned society, the investigators of divine, spiritual, and natural truth, which society more than 2 centuries and a half ago, i.e. 1490, did separate themselves from the Freemasons, but were again united in one spirit among themselves under the dominion of Fratres Rosicrucis, brethren of the Rosy Cross, i.e., the brethren who believed in the grand atonement made by Jesus Christ on the Rosy Cross, stained and marked with his blood for the redemption of spiritual natures, having thought me worthy to be admitted into their august society in equality of a member, apprentice, and brother, and to partake of their sublime knowledge, I do hereby engage in the most solemn manner. And then there's a asterisk here on this document that they're recreating for us. Wow, this is a long. All right, so the asterisk says, it should be noticed that while this manuscript was written in India, it proves that what I have said in the chapter on Masonry, that the Rosy Cross is true, namely that up to somewhere in 1400 there was but one order, that then known as Mystic Masonry, but that gradually a change took place and that the mystical branch left Masonry, henceforth to be known as the Hermetics, later on as the Order of Paracelsus or Rosicrucians, and after the time of Andrea on Christian Rosenkreutz as the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross. After the parting, that branch, which had been known as the Mystic Masonry, became known as Freemasons. Interesting. Later on, as has already been said, the two branches were again united on a spiritual basis because the Rosicrucians not only held the secrets of the ceremony and initiation of Freemasonry, but also held the secrets of the higher initiation. Up somewhere in 1665, all true Rosicrucians were admitted into Masonic lodge rooms. But on account of impostors gaining admittance, the rooms were closed against them until about the year 1745, when some true Rosicrucians again gained admittance to the Masons' lodge, and through their superior knowledge soon became, quote, keepers of the doors, unquote, and through them the true Rosicrucian could again be admitted into the Mason lodges, no matter how high the degree, and without first passing through the different initiations. Since that time up to the present, we find Masonic lodges such as have true Rosicrucians as keepers of the doors, open to all true Rosicrucians. Okay, and continuing this document. Number 1, that I will always be the utmost of my power, conduct myself as becoming a worthy member with sobriety and piety, and to endeavor to prove myself grateful to the society for so distinguished a favor as I now receive during the whole course of my natural life. Number 2, that derision, insult, and persecution of this august society may be guarded against. I will never openly publish that I am a member, nor reveal the name or person of such members as I know at present or may know hereafter. And another asterisk at the end of this. The apprentice here promises silence, and it will be of interest to all to know that the 12th rule of the secret signs of the Rosicrucian, namely the Rosicrucian knows to be silent. Those who are false do not love the truth. Those who are foolish do not love wisdom. The true Rosicrucian prefers to enjoy the company of those who can appreciate truth to that of those who would trample it with their feet. He will keep that which he knows locked up within his heart, for in silence is power. As a minister of state does not go about telling everybody the secrets of the king, so the Rosicrucian does not parade before the public the revelations made to him by the king within, who is nobler and wiser than all the earthly kings and princes, for they only rule by the authority and power derived from him. His secrecy ceases only when the king commands him to speak, for it is then not he who speaks, but the truth that is speaking through him. That's the end of the asterisk. Going back to number 3, I solemnly promise that I will never, during my whole life, publicly reveal the secret knowledge I receive at present or may receive at future period from the society or from one of its members, nor even privately, but will keep our secrets sacred. Number 4, I do hereby promise that I will instruct for the benefit of good men before I depart this life one person or two persons at most in our secret knowledge, and initiate and receive such person or persons as a member or apprentice into our society, in the same manner as I have been initiated and received with such persons only as I believe to be truly worthy of an upright, well-meaning mind, blameless conduct, sober life, and desirous of knowledge. And as there is no distinction of sexes in the spiritual world, neither among the blessed angels nor among the rational, immortal spirits of the human race, as we have as as we have had a Semiramis, okay, and as we have had a Semiramis, queen of Egypt, a Miriam, prophetess, a Pernilla, the wife of Flemel, and lastly a Leona Constantia, abbess of Clermont, who was actually received as a practical member and master into our society in the year 1736, which women were believed to have been processors of the great work. Consequently, sorores Rosicrucis and members of our society by possession, and the possession of this art is the key to the most hidden knowledge, and moreover, as redemption was manifested to mankind by means of a woman, the Blessed Virgin, and as salvation, which is of infinitely more value than our whole art, is granted to the female sex as well as the male, our society does not exclude a worthy woman from being initiated. God himself not only having excluded women from partaking of every felicity in the next life, we will not hesitate to receive a woman in our society as a member, apprentice, and even as a practical member or master if she does possess our work practically and has herself accomplished it, provided she is found, like Peronella, Flemel's wife, to be sober, pious, discreet, prudent, and desirous of knowledge. Asterisk says, the foregoing again proves that has been said before, i.e., that while Rosicrucians were again received in the Masonic orders, the two orders never became as one because, in a spiritual sense, or in the sense that they associated with each other, and that the Rosicrucians were allowed to enter the Masonic lodges, that the Rosicross never went back to the Masons as a body is proven by the fact that the Rosicross admitted women into its ranks, which is something Masonry never did, nor does today. That's not necessarily true of our modern time, but some years later, the Rosicrucian fraternity also stopped this practice. This was caused by reason of a member becoming Grand Master of the order whose wife was known to him not to be qualified to enter the fraternity even as a neophyte or apprentice, and in order to cause the least trouble, a decree was issued prohibiting all women from becoming members. This decree continued until the latter part of the 19th century when the fraternity again started to take or accept women as neophytes, and now some of its best brothers, as they are known, are women. Okay. Continuing, number 5, I do hereby declare that I intend, with the permission of God, to commence our great work with mine own eyes, mine own hands, as soon as circumstances, health, opportunity, and time will permit. First, that I may do good therewith as a faithful steward. Second, that I may merit the continued confidence which the society has placed in me in quality of a member apprentice. And here's another long wow. All right, this one is a particularly long. Oh, okay, I see what's going on here. All right, so okay, the side quality of member representative. Okay, so it will be noticed that the work, or in other words, the duties of a Rosicrucian is here spoken of, with the promise that will be done as to the quote duties of a Rosicrucian unquote. I will quote from the writings of the great German Rosicrucian Franz Hartmann, whose work in the Pronaos of the Temple of Wisdom is possibly one of the best to be had. The duties of a Rosicrucian. Quote, those who are dead in the flesh will read the following with the external understanding. Those who live in the spirit will see its internal meaning and act accordingly. The duties of the true Rosicrucians are, number 1, to alleviate suffering and to cure the sick without accepting any remuneration. The medicine which they give is more valuable than gold, that it is of an invisible kind and can be had for nothing everywhere. To adapt the style of their clothing to the costumes of the country wherein they reside for the time being. The clothing of the spirit is the form which he inhabits and must be adapted to the conditions of the planets whereon he resides. To meet once a year. Okay, yeah, you know what? We actually read all of these. We already read all these, so I'm going to skip this. Number 6, I do further most solemnly promise that should I accomplish the great work, I will not abuse the great power entrusted to me by appearing great and exalted, or seeking to appear in public character in the world, by hunting after vain titles of nobility, vain glory, which are all fleeting and vain, but will endeavor to live a sober and orderly life, as becomes every Christian, though not possessed of so great a temporal blessing. I will devote a considerable part of my abundance and superfluity, multipliable infinitely, to work of private charity, to aged and deeply afflicted people, to poor children, and above all to such as love God and acts uprightly, and I will avoid encouraging laziness in the profession of public beggars. And here's another one. The apprentice here promises to be kind to the old and poor children. He promises not to boast. He promises not to be vain. He promises to be not to be disorderly. These are four of the secret signs of the true Rosicrucians, and are as follows. The Rosicrucian is kind. He never appears gloomy or melancholy, or with a scowl or sneer upon his face. He acts kindly and politely towards everybody, and is always ready to render assistance to others. Although he is different from the majority of other people, he still tries to accommodate himself to their ways, habits, and manners, as much as his dignity will permit. He is, therefore, an agreeable companion, and knows how to converse with the rich as well as with the poor, and to move among all classes of society so as to command their respect, for he has conquered the bear of vulgarity. To this might be added that the Rosicrucian never slays, neither in war or for food. He believes in a pure and humane diet that will keep down the passions and the body and blood pure, and not believing in war, he does not go. So this is all still part of the asterisks. Number 2, the Rosicrucian, and I think it goes on for a couple of different pages. Okay, it goes on for 2 more pages. Okay. Number 2, the Rosicrucian does not boast. He knows that man is nothing but an instrument in the hands of God, and that he can accomplish nothing useful by his own will, the latter being nothing but the will of God perverted in man. To God he gives all the praise, and to that which is mortal he gives all the blame. He is in no inordinate haste to accomplish the thing, but he waits until he receives his orders from the master who resides above and within. He is careful that he speaks what he speaks about, and he uses no unhallowed language. The Rosicrucian is not vain. He proves thereby that there is something real in him, and that he is not like a blown-up bag filled with air. Applause or blame leaves him unaffected, nor does he feel aggrieved if he is contradicted or encounters contempt. He lives within himself and enjoys the beauty of his own inner world, but he never desires to show off his possessions, nor to pride himself on any spiritual gifts which he may have attained. The greater his gifts, the greater will be his modesty, and the more will he be willing to be obedient to the law. This may be added the 6th rule of the Rosicrucians, which says, beware of quacks and pretenders. He who claims to be in possession of knowledge knows nothing. Only he through whom the word of wisdom speaks is wise. The word quack is used here does not mean those who are usually dubbed quacks by the so-called quote-unquote regular medical profession of the present day, for the contrary is nearly always true. Again, 1910. Beware of quacks and pretenders. 4th, the Rosicrucian is not disorderly. He always strives to do his duty and to act according to the order established by the law. He cares nothing for the externalities or for ceremonies. The law is written within his heart, and therefore all his thoughts and acts are ruled by it. His respectability is not centered in his external appearance, but in his real being, which may be compared to the root from which all his actions spring. The interior beauty of his soul is reflected upon his exterior, and stamps all his acts with its seal. The light existing in his heart may be perceived in his eye by an expert. It is the mirror of the divine image within. And finally, that's the end of that. Going back here. Okay. So continuing with this guy's document that he signed, I will communicate every law, every new and useful discovery relating to our work to the nearest member of our society, and hide nothing from him, seeing he cannot, as a worthy member, possibly abuse it or prejudice me thereby. On the other hand, I will hide these secret discoveries from the world. Number 8, I do moreover solemnly promise, should I become a master and possessor, that I will not, on the one hand, assist, aid, or support with gold or with silver any government, king, or sovereign, whatever, except by paying taxes, nor on the other hand, any populace or particular set of men to enable them to revolt against the government. I will leave public affairs and arrangements to the governments of God, who will bring about the events foretold in Revelations of St. John, which are fast accomplishing. Oh, great. I will not interfere with affairs of government. I will neither build churches, chapels, or hospitals in such public charities, as there is already a sufficient number of such public buildings and institutions, if they were only properly applied and regulated. I will not give any salary to a priest or churchman as such, to make him more proud and insolent than he is already. If I relieve a distressed worthy clergyman, I will consider him in the light of a private distressed individual only. I will give no charity with the view of making my name known to the world, but will give my alms privately and secretly. Asterisk, this is the asterisk, this part may seem against the true light of Christianity, but it is not. The very persons that give to charity in hospitals are the ones that make these institutions necessary by robbing the people of what really belongs to them, and in this way, when misfortune befalls them, force them on charity. It is an easy matter for a moneyed king to give 100,000 to charity when he can rob those that work for him out of 10 times the amount. It is an easy matter for a Rockefeller to give $1,000,000 to an institution that makes bigots and aristocrats out of fools, and then put up the price of oil the next day and make the man who is already being bled out of all he has to pay the price. Whoa. It is these things that these men who make it necessary to have such institutions, and it is their duty to give the money to maintain them. Count Leo Tolstoy was right when he said, quote, no man should work for a man like Rockefeller. He should prefer starvation. He should consider it a religious duty to refuse to work for a trust. He should die rather than assist in supporting men like Rockefeller. If a military uniform were put on him and he were ordered to die, he would do it proudly. For what? For patriotism, that evil thing which has done so much harm in the world, and which he would condemn and restrict rather than defend and spread. The trouble is that men are not ready to die for the right thing. This, again, is still part of the asterisk. What is needed in America is a great religious movement. Truth will make your people free. When they abandon pleasure as an object of life, they will not need so much money. Glorious Tolstoy, poor but sublime man that he now is, without a home and without a country, simply because he dared to be a man and dared to do as God commanded him to do. If each man received the price of his labor, each would have plenty, and no public or charitable institutions would be needed. But until man will learn what is right and what belongs to him, these things will continue. By far, the greater majority of mankind deserves to be slaves. He does not care for the truth. Falsehoods are more to his liking. Wow. Man, I mean, look around you in our public lifestyle right now. I mean, just look around you and tell me that some of that last sentence doesn't apply. Men will see scoundrels in office, and at the head of public institutions, they will condemn them and turn right around, and through the influence of their votes, put the same men in the same positions again. They care neither for truth or justice. The voters of America could be put any man or set of men in office that they might desire, and there are plenty of honest ones to be had, but they do not care to do it. An honest man who loves truth and justice and cares nothing for appearance or influence is like a head of spoiled cabbage in the marketplace. He is not wanted. The Rosicrucian loves justice. He, however, never sets himself up as judge over the faults of others, nor does he wish to appear to be wise by censuring the mistakes of others. He does not enjoy gossip and cares no more about the foolishness committed by others than he would about the buzzing of a fly or the capers of a monkey. He finds no pleasures in listening to the political or personal quarrels, disputations, or mutual recriminations. He cares nothing for the cunningness of the fox, the dissimulation of a crocodile, or the rapacity of a wolf, and is not amused by the stirring up of mud. His nobility of character lifts him up into a sphere far beyond all such strifes and absurdities, and being above the sensual plane, wherein ordinary mortals find their happiness and enjoyment, he lives with those who do not think evil of each other. He who do not rejoice about the injustice done to their brother, who make merry about his ignorance and enjoy his misfortunes. He enjoys the company of those who love the truth and who are surrounded by the peace and harmony of the Spirit. Sorry, guys, this is one really long footnote, but pretty powerful, though, at the same time, in some of the stuff that they're saying here. The Rosicrucian loves the truth. There is no devil worse than falsehood and calumny. Ignorance is a non-entity, but falsehood is the substance of evil. The calumniator rejoices whenever he has found something upon which to base his lies and to make them grow like mountains. Opposed to it is the truth, it being a ray of light from the eternal fountain of good, which has the power to transform man into a divine being. The Rosicrucian seeks therefore no other light but the light of the truth, and this does he not enjoy alone, but in company of all who are good and filled with its divine majesty, whether they live on this earth or in the spiritual state, and he enjoys it above all with those who are persecuted, oppressed, and innocent, but who will be saved by the truth. The Rosicrucian does not think evil of others. Those who think evil of others see merely the evil which exists within themselves, reflected and mirrored in others. And therein lies the devil, my friends. Okay? Not the mystical guy with the horns, but that side of ourselves that we sometimes allow to control us, and then we become whenever you see a man or woman cover the face when they see a work of art, nude or semi-nude, you will not need to fear judging them, for in the innermost recess of their hearts will be found a very dirty corner. The Rosicrucian is always willing to recognize in everything that which is good. Tolerance is a virtue by which the Rosicrucian is eminently distinguished from others, and by which he may be known. If a thing appears to be ambiguous, he suspects his judgment about it until he has investigated its nature, but as long as his judgment is not perfect, he is more inclined to form a good opinion than an evil one about everything. How interesting. That was one heck of a footnote. Going back to where it all started, here we go. Okay, and now continuing with the guys, this gentleman's agreement that he signed, of the various things the Rosicrucians agree to. I hereby promise that I will never be ungrateful to the worthy friend and brother who initiated and received me, but will respect and oblige him as far as lies in my power, in the same manner as he has been obliged to promise to his friend who received him. Wow, I've been reading for a long time. Number 11. Should I travel either by sea or by land, and meet with any person who may call himself a brother of the Rosy Cross, I will examine him whether he can give me a proper explanation of the universal fire of nature, and of our magnet for attracting and magnifying the same under the form of a salt, whether he is well acquainted with our work, or whether he knows the universal dissolvent and its use. If I find him able to give satisfactory answers, I will acknowledge him as a member and brother of our society. Should I find him superior in knowledge and experience to myself, I will honor and respect him as a master above me. Number 12. If I should please God to permit me to accomplish our great work with my own hands, I will give praise and thanks to God in humble prayer, and devote my time to the doing and promoting all good things that lies in my power, and to the pursuit of true and useful knowledge. I do hereby solemnly promise that I will not encourage wickedness and debauchery, therefore offending God by administering the medicine for human body, or the aurum potable to a patient or patients infected with the venereal disease. And here we have yet another asterisk after venereal disease, which starts, this does not mean to say that a physician would not dare to treat patients of these diseases in a regular way, that is by administering medicines or drugs, but that no one has authority to act as master and take neophytes, dare take in anyone as apprentice while he or she may be of suffering a venereal disease, or even such as have had such diseases and who are not entirely freed from the influence of them. Purity of thought and being is one of the first things that a neophyte must accomplish. There is no difference between having the germ poison of venereal diseases and that of vaccination in the blood. They are both of a syphilitic nature, and man must get rid of their baneful influence on the body, mind, soul before he can really accomplish anything in the higher occult. So says him. And then continuing, 14, I do promise that I will never give the fermented metallic medicine for the transmutation to any person living, no, not a single brain, unless the person is an initiated and received member and brother of the Rosy Cross. To keep faithfully the above articles, as I have now received them from a worthy member of our society, as he received them from himself, or them himself, I willingly agree and sign this with my name and affix my seal to the same. So help me God. Amen. S. Backstrom, L.S. I have initiated and received Mr. Sigmund Backstrom, Doctor of Physics, as a practical member and brother above an apprentice in consequence of his solid learning, which I certify by my name and seal. Mauritius, 12th September 1794, Du Chazelle, F.R.C. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. We got like one more page, and then I'm going to end it for today. I definitely got a lot of other work I got to take care of. So, for the channel and also my personal life. We have used this manuscript because it is of some value to prove that I had already written on these subjects, and more so because we could interweave the true Rosicrucian teachings into the MSS. It will be interesting to note, however, that in no place does it say Rosicrucian fraternity, but always the Rosicrucian Society. There is a difference between the two. The Rosicrucian Society may simply be an outer door of the temple of the Rosy Cross, as it seems to have been, because Dr. Backstrom was still an apprentice. Following this, we have the Rosicrucian fraternity, which is nothing more than the doors to the sublime and the supreme temple of Euless. The vulgar, bigoted, and ignorant will not see any difference, but to the true scholar of the higher occult and divine mysticism, there is a vast difference. England has had a secret branch of the true Rosicrucian fraternity for several centuries, but this fraternity never issued any manifestos, but worked in secret. It never played in want of members. It was never in want of members or brothers, as there were plenty of them at all times. Somewhere between the years 1840 and 1850, a Rosicrucian society was formed. Dr. Waite seems to think that when this society was founded, the true Rosicrucian had no existence, but he believed that there was a pseudo-order there. This is a mistake. The Rosicrucian Society of England was never identical with the Rosicrucian fraternity, and there is a great difference between the two as being day and night. The Rosicrucian Society, founded in the 40s, was a Masonic order and should be known as the Masonic Rose Cross. This society has ceremonial initiations, colleges, etc. Each one, in order to be able to become a member, had to be a Master Mason. Okay. All right, so I am going to wrap this up today. I think that was a good run there. That was a real good run. Almost 3 hours of straight reading. I hope you guys enjoyed that. There's some very interesting. There's some really interesting stuff in this book, and like this thing says, like you gotta, in so much of what's out there, we have to read between the lines, and and the thing is that try not. If people, I think it would be great if people like didn't get all like locked up in their own thing. You know what I mean? Like people should definitely take their time with wrapping their heads around things, because in the reality of it is, like these guys, obviously they're teaching they're kind of throwing out a little bit of their own information to, I guess, clear the waters or whatever else, as is the philosophy of fire. The same author of this book wrote in the other audiobook that I read to you guys, and there's a lot of clues here. And I don't know, you guys can think what you guys want to, and this, obviously, and I just thought that it was worth the read. So we're going to have one more part, which I will do tomorrow, and that'll be the last one, I think. if I'm not mistaken, and let me just double check here, we are on page 143, and there are, let's see here, 212 pages. So, yeah, we'll just keep on going, and hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to finish it all up. Otherwise, really appreciate you guys, stopping by and listening to the book. There's definitely some little nuggets here of the tirade against the whole Rockefellian and like government thing was very interesting. I found that to be fascinating, and so funny how it's completely applicable today. And this book, again, written 1906, 1910, some cool stuff. So to all of you guys in the chat, thank you for saying hello and stopping by and making little comments in here. I just want to let you guys know when I do these readings, I don't look at the chat at all. So feel free to say hi, have conversations within yourselves. I might pop in at a breaks and say hello or something like that. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining me today. If you like the video and you appreciate me reading all these things out, hit the like button, make sure to subscribe, hit the little bell, and share it if you think other people would be interested in it. Otherwise, I will be continuing to do more of these audiobooks and obviously releasing all kinds of investigative videos of history and of religions and of all kinds of different stuff. I am so backlogged with stuff. I've been researching these things for so many years, and I contribute to lots of different YouTube channels and different people. And I figured, you know what, it's time for me to start up my own channel and just start, like, at least piecemeal, start throwing this stuff out. So it gets into a wider audience, and maybe, and in some ways, helps each other, helps to teach people out there, all my brothers and sisters, how to maybe, treat each other nicely with love. Not be so mad at each other, not be so hateful towards each other, because honestly, like, you got to beware of anybody who tells you to hate somebody else. And where that comes from and all that kind of stuff. There's something to all that. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. And like I said, thanks again for joining me, and I will see you guys in the next reading, probably tomorrow morning, and hopefully we'll finish this book and move on to the next one. Otherwise, peace, guys.